All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here so far. And thanks so much for joining in here on this Sunday evening. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member here on the channel with their green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you would also like that priority answering, there's always a link in the description and various join buttons elsewhere here on the video and channel pages where you can also get that priority answering. But I see we have Brian, Kyle, Grand Admiral Thrawn, Anthony, Cars, and Ford Enthusiast, Mr. 705, and Mike. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. And I see Car says, good evening, everyone. Matt, what is your favorite brand of all-season tires? Great question. I think for me, it's probably kind of a toss-up between the Continental, it's like the DWS, I don't remember the word and letter jumble that they use, but something along those lines. It's the Continental. That's the one I just put on the Bullet before I got rid of it, about a year or so ago. I put those tires on it, and I really liked them. I drove them over the winter and into the spring with those tires. They were great. And I also, really like the Michelin Pilot Sport all-season tire. That's another top-notch tire in that segment. So either one of those, I think the Continental is a little cheaper. So if you're wanting to save a few bucks, I think the Continental is, in my opinion, seemed like to me to be very comparable. And was again, there wasn't a compelling reason to spend the extra money on the Michelin to me personally. And Continental was also great to work with. Not like that should matter for anyone else, but they were also very nice. But I mean, just even objectively, before I worked with them, I kind of just viewed that one as being pretty close to being equal. So that's it. But I mean, I've heard fantastic things about the Pilot all season. I just haven't had any personal experience with it. That's another one. So one of those two would be my top picks for sure. And Kyle says, I saw my cousin earlier and she has a 2024 BMW X5M competition. That thing is crazy looking in person. That's awesome. You got to check one out in person. Yeah, it is crazy for sure. Thankfully, though, to me, it's one of the, more agreeable versions of crazy that BMW's put out recently. Again, everyone's taste is different, but it's a fantastic vehicle. Hopefully she was able to take you for a ride in it, because it's a lot of fun to go for a little sprint in that thing. But that's awesome she has one, and cool, you got to check it out. And let me see, everyone else saying hello. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. I see Cam Jam as well, Good Stick, Decepticon Stinger, MBKN, and Lord Commander Mandy says hello from Port St. Lucie, Florida. Hope you're doing okay there. I know I had a few other buddies in Florida I was checking in on here this week. I hope that anyone that's been affected by these floods and everything, that even ventured further up beyond Florida, hope everyone's doing okay, staying safe. And it's not a fun time of year, with the crazy weather that always kicks up here. Let me see. Luke says, I'm out in Wisconsin delivering to a power plant this evening. Oh, that's interesting. That's it's pretty cool. I'm curious what kind of power plant it is, whether it's one of the more renewable ones or if it's more traditional. But that's cool. And I see Wheatman saying good evening as well from Northern California, and Joe, thanks for saying hi as well. Good Stick says, what are your honest thoughts on driverless cars in general, ignoring all the regulatory things, just the very concept of them? I appreciate the context and the guardrails, so I don't go off on tangents. But I think as far as honest general thoughts on driverless cars, like I've said in the past, I think I like the idea of them for people who don't want to drive, because people who don't want to drive aren't going to be doing a good job at driving. They're not going to be, enjoying it. So if it makes their lives happier to not have that burden on them, and, it's something they don't enjoy doing anyway. So again, they're devoting less attention to it. I mean, that doesn't mean that they're bad drivers, but, it's just something they're doing begrudgingly and not passionately. And so if all those people want to just hang out in a driverless pod in the right-hand lane and enjoy and let us, enjoy driving, I think the driving world would be a whole lot more enjoyable if the only people driving were people who actually wanted to be driving. It basically would limit it to just us enthusiasts for the most part, or people that don't want to pay for a driverless car if it turns out to be more expensive or whatever. But I think it's fantastic. And also, the driverless cars, if they do get to a point where it is solid tech and solid safety and reliability and all that, I think that, again, and assuming that we have, like you said, the correct regulatory guidelines there to keep it safe as well, it's also just going to make a drastic reduction in crashes and stuff, because all those people will be in these pods that we are assuming be obeying all the laws, driving pretty much perfectly, and again, eliminating a lot of the human error on the roads. And that might encourage, if enthusiasts are now just among other enthusiasts and everyone's just like, goofing around on the roads, then obviously that could negate some of that progress. If, all of a sudden everyone gets more reckless and crazy. We kind of saw this with COVID, whenever the streets were kind of shut down and it was almost deserted. Everyone's like, sweet, we can now street race everywhere. And it's like, yeah, this is, and, there was a bunch of extra crashes and everything. So, it's one of those things, hopefully we don't screw it up for ourselves, but I think that it could actually, have a lot of promise. So yeah, to me, if it is done safely, there is only positives for everyone involved, whether you're on the enthusiast side or the non-enthusiast side. To me, I think it's a win for everybody. Now, again, that's a big leap, assuming it's actually safe and assuming the regulations are actually there to make it good. I mean, it could go bad in a variety of different ways still, and I think that's the concern. The theory of it is great, and this is why everyone, would love this idea of driverless cars. It's a wonderful idea, but unfortunately, it's usually not as black and white as it may seem. But great question. And Brian, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships here right off the bat. I'm so happy everyone was able to grab those, including Babs and Mike and Danny, and some familiar names there, Ben. And so anyway, thank you so much, Brian, for the generosity there. And big welcome to, I think Digital Health might be a new one. So welcome, and hope everyone enjoys the memberships there. And thanks again, Brian. And let me see, getting back to other member questions. MBKN says, well, the Kraken has finally been completed. Illuminated intake, snorkel, and badge, and the new horns have been installed. Just the bumper redo and one part needs painted, and I can throw it together. Nice. Well, you work fast. That's impressive. I didn't think you'd have it turned around in a week pretty much. That's awesome. Kudos to you. Hope it's able to go for another fun drive here soon once you get it all finished up. And Anthony says, I love those Continentals. I have them on my TLX. That's awesome. Great that another perspective there. So that's great that you're enjoying them as well. Hugo says, hey, Matt, I haven't been here in a while. Hello from South Carolina. Thanks for stopping by, Hugo. Hope you're doing well. Hope the Z3 is treating you well, and hope everything's going well. But yeah, thanks so much for stopping by. And Austin says, hey, Matt, do you have a dash cam on the Mach-E? I'm thinking of picking one up for my vehicles. I don't run one in the Mach-E currently. The reason why, this is maybe an irrational fear, but I have a slight paranoia about running accessories nonstop in at least the Mach-E, the way that it's programmed. There was some early reports of the car mismanaging 12-volt battery power, and the, main battery of the vehicle not kicking in to replenish that fast enough. And there was some reports of people coming out to dead 12-volt batteries in their Mach-Es as a result of running an accessory or something that, because I think with a lot of the dash cams that I run, like the Vantry ones, they sometimes will run for a while. They do intelligently cut off at a certain point, whether it's a timed thing or it's just sensing that the vehicle needs to have a certain amount of juice, in reserve there in the 12-volt. But I just was seeing more than a couple people that were having their Mach-E 12-volt batteries go dead running dash cams. So I'm not entirely confident they have the software worked out correctly for that. Maybe they have. Again, this is something I read, almost 2 years ago. But for that reason, I do not run one in the Mach-E. It's obviously a dash cam is a great idea in every car. I've ran one in every single other vehicle we've had. Just not certain that that's been properly worked out. I know lots of people do run dash cams in their Mach-Es, and it's fine, but especially since when you kill a 12-volt in the Mach-E, it's not like a regular gas vehicle where you just pop the hood and it's not a big deal. Like, to get to the 12-volt battery in the Mach-E, you have to first pop open like a tow hook receiver thing, and jump that. You have to put an electrical lead to that to power the front trunk to open up. Then that gets you access to all that stuff under there. And then you got to take a bunch of different panels off, remove a bunch of crap to then access the 12-volt, to then jump that. and then, that can also make everything else go haywire in the vehicle and stuff. So I just want to take zero chances of killing the 12 volt in the Mach-E. So that is why I'm being extra cautious there with that. So, but yeah, dash cams are fantastic. The most recent dash cam that I used, I think I have it linked in my Amazon storefront in the description of this video. I think it's the X4. It was a 4K Vantru. Zachary, I think he might be able to say which one that it was as well. But anyway, yeah, it's a great dash cam. Those Vantru ones are really solid. You can get the multi-channel ones and all that. They're really, really good. And let me see. So MD Can says, "Where's 2 at? Is he still stuck in the basement?" Could be. He might be working on some more raps. He's been churning out the beats here recently. So I don't know. If you're in the Discord server, you know what we're talking about. He is a very prolific rap writer. But Luke says, "I'm delivering high volt fluid, and I guess they fill these generators with them. And if a transformer goes out, they replace them with ones they have pre-built." Cool. Thanks for the info. It's interesting. I don't even know what high volt fluid is. I'm guessing high voltage for something, but that's cool. Thanks for sharing. And Zachary says, "Tonight for a college class, I'm doing a marketing assignment about brand positioning in the automotive industry. I've never felt so prepared for something in my entire life." That's awesome. Well, yeah, hopefully the channel helped you at least a little bit with that. And best of luck with the assignment. And sounds like you understand the assignment there. So that's good. And thanks for stopping by as well, Zachary. I appreciate it, even though you have, sounds like, some stuff to get through there for college. And Hugo says, "Hey, Matt, do you think Ford's CEO really wants to bring back sedans?" I don't think he has a choice in his mind. The way he's been talking, it sounds like he really needs to get the, size of these vehicles down, because for him, the only way to make profitable EVs with Fords, at least with the current stuff they're working with, is to make smaller battery stuff. Because the battery is the most expensive component. And so, the only way you're going to have decent range is if you go to a smaller vehicle, for a smaller battery pack. So I think, yeah, he wants, that's why he said, Americans have to fall out of love with these giant vehicles, these monster trucks or whatever he said that they're in love with, which, he's contributing to. But, I get it. It's, they have to make stuff that people want to buy. And so it's this tricky thing of like what they actually want to do. And then what do people actually buy? All these car companies are in the same dilemma. They actually want to, they've invested all this money in these EVs. Like, they want to build EVs, but no one wants to buy them. Again, this is generally speaking. EV sales are still climbing. I want to be very clear about that. EV sales are climbing if you look at the sales data. But, as far as just like the discounts on them and the fact that all these companies are now pushing back because they're not getting as fast of sales as they have been in the past. But, so it's just this resistance to EVs, I guess I should say, that is, just making things harder on these companies that, they know what direction they need to go in, and they are going to get there eventually, but they have to just pump the brakes because the buying public just isn't ready for a variety of reasons. Some good, some irrational, but reasons nonetheless. But yeah, I think he wants to, I don't know if they're going to ever call them sedans, because I don't know if Ford is able to eat crow. It seems like that's something they're very hesitant to do. But, I think they will have a cross-trek kind of thing or something, probably call it an SUV. Like, oh, we never went to sedans, but like they're still smaller vehicles. I think is kind of, the way it'll probably go for them. MD Cans excited about the membership gifting there already. Mike says, "Matt, is it too early to say Stellantis is slowly approaching life support in the US?" Yeah, I think that's a little premature. They're struggling, but you have to keep in mind that FCA, Dodge, whatever, they are no stranger to being on the ropes. They have their entire existence pretty much since the 1960s, has been a struggle. They've been combined with one company and another company, and there's just been one fiasco after another, and being like, oh boy, well, as we're getting into the 70s and stuff, it's like, well, maybe we're getting close to the end for them. And then you have things like the K car that saved them, and Lee Iacocca's great ideas, and the minivan, and all these things that they had, these kind of Hail Marys almost, in a way, that ended up working out. And if you know your history, the story of, I can't remember the exact administration, but they got bailed out already, once. What was it, the early 80s, maybe, if I remember correctly, and got a loan from the federal government to keep going. We all know about, the recession in 2008 and that whole thing. It's always been a struggle for them. I mean, and again, Fiat bought them out whenever Daimler Chrysler fell apart, and then Fiat was a thing for a while, and then Stellantis now had to come in and further, grow that conglomerate to, keep them going. I mean, obviously, stuff like Jeep proves it's worth keeping around. Jeep on its own is a massively valuable brand, regardless of what you think about the other brands. I mean, most companies want a Jeep. They want those profit margins. The amount of people that are willing to shill out $60,000 for a cloth two-door Wrangler with manual windows and manual door locks, and no, hardly any safety features and stuff, like, and people would just open their wallets for it all day. I mean, every car company is jealous of that. Every single one of them is like, it's the same thing as like a Subaru kind of thing of like, people don't cross shop, people don't care. It's just like they just want that. They don't care what it costs. They go for it, and that's it. And so I think that there is still massive appeal to some of the Stellantis brands, probably not all of them. Obviously, Chrysler, I would say, is kind of on life support in a way, but I mean, they have, I've heard their, CEO talk. They have lots of plans. They have, stuff coming in the pipeline. It just takes a little while. And, the Stellantis thing was a new thing that happened. I mean, it's been 3 years since the Stellantis partnership and that new infusion of cash. It takes more than 3 years to bring a product to market, especially if you're starting from nothing, which Chrysler was, to, get this kind of an EV thing going. And then now all of a sudden it's like, well, do we want to launch an EV right now in this very, again, slower adoption phase that we're currently in for EVs? But that was their whole game plan. I think Chrysler's original plan was to go full EV by 2028. If they do that, they'll be the first company to do that outside of a dedicated EV brand, obviously. But so now it's like, okay, well, we just spent a bunch of money to make this new Airflow or whatever they're going to call, this new like Mach-E competitor that they were supposedly working on. Do they can that and, try and, call an audible and do some kind of part sharing with some other brand that has something in the works? Or, what do you do? It's just like they're kind of, unfortunately, kind of in a catch-22 there of, I don't know what Chrysler's going to do. So I think Chrysler's the one that's the most concerning for me from a future standpoint. But I mean, Stellantis seems to have reiterated the thing that they said back in 2021, that every brand gets 10 years to prove their worth. And then at that point, you start seeing stuff go away if it hasn't proved its worth. So to me, I think everything is safe until at least the early 2030s. Again, I guess we could just guess that maybe the company falls apart altogether. But I mean, again, you have to keep in mind that Fiat is massive in, the rest of the world. Fiat is enormous. If you look at just the global sales, I think Stellantis is only behind Toyota. Maybe there might be one other one that's a little bit higher, but I mean, they still sell a ton of vehicles. And so, it might be a shuffling of brands. It might be, shaking up the management, whatever you need to do. But like, they have stuff all over the world that sells. Here in the States, it's easy to say, oh, well, Alfa Romeo, no one buys them here, but they sell a ton of them elsewhere in the world. You say, oh, no one buys Fiat, obviously, because there's nothing here. But elsewhere in the world, 500e for a while was one of the best sellers. 500 is also a fantastic seller. Panda is one of the most sold cars in the world, which is something a lot of Americans have never even heard of, a Fiat Panda, and that's like one of the biggest selling things elsewhere. So there's a lot of that. So I think you got to look at Stellantis from a global standpoint when you're worried about it. I know you said in the US here, but they have enough elsewhere in the world to subsidize the US because it's worth staying in the US. It's a massive market. And so I think they're, again, looking long-term here, and, all the profits in Europe and elsewhere in the world can kind of, keep them afloat here in the States for many of those brands. Again, maybe Fiat pulls out or something like that. But, I don't think we need to worry about Stellantis as a whole. They'll figure it out one way or another. And it's going to be painful and it'll be uncomfortable, I'm sure, in a lot of ways. Like, again, any Daimler Chrysler dealer is familiar with over the past couple of decades. But I think that again they have the appeal and some really solid stuff that will keep them going. I mean, they still also like look at Ram. I mean, Ram, for all the crap that they get and some of the glitches they've had here, like I said, even with the 2025s, I mean, Ram still sells way more than like Tundra. Look at Toyota. Again, I think the largest company in the world, Toyota, putting all their resources to make an awesome full-size truck because they wanted to crack into that F-150, Silverado, Ram territory. And look at what Tundra still does, a tiny fraction of the sales that even Ram does. Ram way outsells them. So, there's some, I mean, those are huge cash cows, every single one of those Rams. So, I mean, there's a lot of that is still very, very good. Obviously the media likes to dwell on the negative because that's what gets the clicks. But there are still some really good stuff, rolling in. There's still a lot of money rolling into Stellantis every single day in sales. And they, definitely have some desirable stuff. So I'm not too concerned. It's just, the media really likes to blow things up. I remember plenty of times Caliber, even, this is the last thing I'll say and then I'll move on. But even like, I remember in the Dodge Calibers and stuff like that, the people, they couldn't give those away. Same thing with Dodge Avengers. You remember when the Dodge Avengers, like no one wanted those and they were knocking 10 grand off of those, just like the Hornet. Unfortunately, it's just history repeating itself. There's all these things. I remember Dodge Nitros, they were giving them away for like $99 a month for a lease on a Dodge Nitro back in, was that 2010 or something? Again, in the midst of that recession. They couldn't give them away. And now we're seeing the same thing with Hornets here, which is, I mean, the Nitro, I think, especially at that point, was probably not a great car. Hornet is actually pretty decent, assuming they work out the software glitches. It's otherwise, a solid little fun car. It's built by Alfa Romeo. It's fun to drive in many ways. And, it does not deserve the crap that it's getting, but it just, again, history repeating itself. And they got through it before. I think they'll get through it again. Maybe their luck will run out someday, but again, I think there's way too much there that's going well for them still to not have to worry too much. But great question, Mike. And Hugo says, also, is it true that Honda wants to bring back the S2000? I saw it, couldn't tell if it was truth or fake. There is no official stuff. I saw a couple renderings floating around, and I mean, I would just recommend anyone that, because I keep getting more and more of these posts sent to me about like these fake TikTok, cars and crap. There's a lot of the stuff that gets put out, and especially now in the age of AI and it's being super easy to render fake cars. It's basically, unless, you can go on the media sites, type in whatever car brand you're interested in and type in, Honda media, and it'll pull up their media site, and there's all the models listed, all their releases, and that's all the official stuff. There hasn't even been any credible rumors about a new S2000. Honda has said a few years back they teased an NSX and a hardtop electric sports car under sheets, and again, it was a hard top. It was bigger than an S2000 would be, or a successor for that. That's the only promise we've seen as far as a sports car. That was, again, just a teaser. They have never said any official outline of what that car would be, if that car even is still coming. Again, especially if they're planning on being electric, and now they figure they have some more time to, bring something like that out, then they may push that back. NSX, I thought, was going to be coming fairly soon. Seems like that might get pushed back now. So I don't think there's anything. And I've talked to Honda executives in the past, and they're like, yeah, we all want an S2000 too. Like, everyone in Honda is in agreement that they want it, but they can't come up with a business case for it, because who's going to buy it? Because let's be honest, it's going to be $50,000 or more, even if it has the same horsepower as the old one. And even if it has the same equipment as the old one, it's going to be 50 grand just because of inflation and what $35,000 in 2006 was, and what that equates to now. It's 50 grand already. You're starting there. And then you add in, it has a Type R engine or something like that. And then you add in the screens, and you add in the new safety tech and all the extra crap you got to throw into it. Now, how many people are excited about a $75,000 S2000? Because that's probably more accurate. And then, how many people buy two doors and convertible two doors, especially? And then if you want to actually please the enthusiast, it has to be a manual. And how many people are going to buy manuals? They're 1.5% of the market. It's just, so you start with a tiny sliver of pie, and you cut it down, you cut it down, you cut it down. There's no way to do it unless you want to have a halo car and you're okay with it being a money loser. And some companies do take that leap, just they know they're lighting cash on fire, but they want to do it badly enough. But I think Honda and all these companies now, we see them partnering up with all these EVs, and they're all struggling to compete with the Chinese brands elsewhere in the world where they have to compete with them. No one is, I think, in a position to burn cash on fun projects anymore. We see Hyundai toying with a little bit with the Envision 74 potentially, which might just be something they do just to like get people to pay attention to hydrogen again, because they're so desperately wanting people to jump on the hydrogen train. But other than that, I think it's just something that these mainstream brands just can't afford to really do. Again, Toyota can kind of do it a little bit, but I think they've done a pretty good job of part sharing and partnerships to keep these things affordable so that they're not losing their butt on every single car they sell, with GR86 and stuff like that. But I mean, even like, GR Corolla is still based on a Corolla. So you have some subsidization there to help, things not get out of control from a cost standpoint. But yeah, anything like that, you got to just immediately discount it, because there's no way those things are happening until we see it. For me, I'll believe it when I see it. But yeah, I haven't heard any even decent rumors about it, honestly. It's a shame. I'd love to see it come back, but I think a lot of those things, again, if it actually did come, people wouldn't be happy with it. And so you're better off just buying the thing you already love. If you love an S2000, buy an S2000. That's why they're appreciating, because people know that kind of car is never coming back. It is never going to ever be that good again. From a purity standpoint, from a simplicity standpoint, from a weight standpoint, it's never happening unless, again, you're paying exotic money. So, it's just, you're better off buying the classics and enjoying them. And Hugo, thank you also for being a member for 15 months now. I appreciate it. He says, I personally think the Hornet is a decent looking car. It's just overpriced. I think it should start around 20 grand or less, but not 30 and over. I mean, it's a lot of car for the amount of money. I think, like I said in my original review, under 30, if you buy that base one, it's a great deal. The problem is the options list just gets too expensive, and they just balloon in price with the options. That's the biggest problem. If they kept the options to a minimum, it would have been fine. But they just, also the ones they're building were super loaded up. That was the mistake. They should have just, churned out more of the lower trim ones, assuming people weren't going to spend 45 grand on one, and it would have been a whole lot better. I mean, I don't think it's 20 grand car. I'd say it's a solid, I think it's actually worth high 20s, right around 30. I think that does make sense, but not at the 45 that some of these loaded ones were going for. And I called this a year and a half ago when they came out. I said it's too expensive. So I agree with you there, but there's no modern car that's really should be under $20,000, because that's just, again, with all the expensive crap in them these days, there's just no way for a company to make money with a 20 grand car. 30 is the new 20. That's what I say with inflation. But let me see other member questions here. Gran says, I love seeing your cameo in the movie Abduction. It was awesome seeing you in it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, that was a fun one to do for sure. And Cam says, hi, Matt, looking at a 2017 Camry XSE V6 with about 70,000 miles, and the dealer wants 21,000. Do you think it's a smart buy? I would have to look at what a 2017 Camry is worth. My first stop is always KBB, kind of see what private party is worth for something like that. And then, kind of get an idea of what trade-in value might be for how much they could have potentially bought it for, to kind of figure out, what their margin might be potentially. And then go from there. I have no clue what a Camry like that is worth, to be completely honest. So that's a really tough thing to say off the cuff. But yeah, I would just, if you've done your research and if that seems like a decent price to you, that's also the thing with, car buying in general is it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder. If it is worth that to you, that's great. But I mean, I just, cross shop, look at what other ones are going for. If it's priced, at or below the others out there, then, go for it. So sorry, I'm not much help there, but just, it's really hard for me to say, unless it's a car that I'm actively shopping myself and I'm fresh on the pricing and all that, but I'm not, unfortunately, for those. MDA Can says, well, it's been a month without driving it. It's literally killing me as far as the Kona N. Well, I can certainly understand that. So I totally can relate. And Brian says, you were in widescreen movies. How did you jump from actor to auto reporting? So I just was an extra in a few movies. It was just something I did for fun on the side. Back a long time ago, 2011 to 2014, I think was my last one. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. If there's a video on the channel here, if you just search for I was a movie extra or something like that, it'll pop up and I go through all the movies that I was in and my experiences with that. It's a lot of fun though. But I was always doing the YouTube channel kind of on the side alongside that. So it wasn't really a leap. It was just something I did. And then whenever my, main career focus didn't pan out the way I was hoping it would, I kind of took the chance on the channel and, got it to where it is today. And I see we have two in the house. Thanks for stopping by too. Thank you for the super chat. He says, hey guys, just dropping in to say hi. Unfortunately, tonight is date night and someone is popping a question. So for the last time, while I still have my man card, some say he proposes with Warren piston rings and that blue coolant is his preferred drink at his reception. All we know is he's Super Ducks fan. Am I right, Peter? Well, congrats. Hopefully, I guess I don't want to preemptively say congrats, but I have confidence in you too. Hopefully it goes well, and that's a big deal. So yeah, congrats that you've reached this point, and yeah, I hope it goes well, and have a great date, and best of luck for the future. Let us know how it goes next week. You gotta stop by and let everyone know here. We're all pulling for you too, and glad you're able to get out of the basement in order to make that date happen as well. So, but that's awesome. And let me see, getting back, I remember questions here. So let me see. Grand says, as long as driverless cars aren't like car. I don't know what the KRR thing is, but I'll have to look into that if someone else can fill me in. The Cam says, I saw a video about the new Prelude possibly having a manual option with a hybrid. Not getting my hopes up, but I'm definitely getting my hopes up. Do you think it's possible? I mean, Honda pulled it off, with the CRZ and the Insight even before that. So, I mean, they can do it. I think it's a little more complicated these days because their hybrid system is a parallel drive system. And so that's, I think, been the thing holding them up is, if you know how the Honda hybrid works, basically the gas engine is just keeping the electric motors going. It has an electric traction motor, which is why Honda's hybrids kind of feel more like an EV than Toyotas, for example. So that's the problem, is it's not like the Toyotas where there is still like a pass through. It's more so that the engine is just a generator. So if you had a manual with a modern Honda hybrid, you would just be running a generator essentially, if that makes any sense. And there's no involvement there. Like, yes, the revs climb when you accelerate in a Honda hybrid, but that's just the computer saying we need more juice for the electric motor. So therefore it increases the output of the engine to bump up the electricity generation that's happening essentially. So unless they're cooking up a new hybrid system that doesn't work like that, otherwise I think there's basically zero chance they put a manual in it if they're using the current system. And from what I've seen, it sounds like it's going to be a copy and paste job because Honda's good at that, unfortunately, and relies on that a lot. So I would bank on, maybe a little bit more power out of that engine, but the same powertrain, which means they're stuck with an automatic just because, again, you'd be manually shifting something kind of pointlessly. And it would actually probably, I don't know how it would work. I guess if you were over revving an a gas generator for an EV, I guess it would probably have some way of venting the electricity if you maxed out the battery and you were just revving it for no reason. But yeah, it's unfortunately kind of a very complicated thing. So there's no way to really include a manual in that current hybrid system. Good Stick says, do you think that Dodge could join Porsche developing in e-fuels if their EV line of cars are failures? E-fuels is more expensive, but I think car enthusiasts would pay a little bit more. I mean, I think that I don't even know if Porsche needs the help. I'm sure they wouldn't, turn their noses up to it at this point. But I think that Porsche's already they are on that path. It just takes time to ramp up production of it. I believe they said it'll be ready for consumer consumption. I thought late 2020s, early 2030s for that, because I think so, you're right. Some enthusiasts would pay extra for e-fuels. I think especially Porsche enthusiasts who have some deeper pockets, wouldn't mind paying European fuel prices. If they needed to pay $8 a gallon or whatever for e-fuels, they could do that. So I think that's why Porsche is smart to target current Porsche drivers. With this, a lot of enthusiasts though, just don't have the disposable cash for that, or they're not going to pay, that. And I mean, I guess we'll see if the choices are EV or e-fuel. It's $8 a gallon. We'll see what people. I guess there'll be some people that'll just bite the bullet and go for it. But yeah, I think it's just, price is a big deal. I mean, look at how many people, get upset about fuel prices even going up a little bit, and how I think I read that is actually like the number one indicator of the economy for most Americans is like, is gas cheap? If gas is cheap, the world is good. Like that's like how simple it is for some people. And, even if the entire world's on fire, if gas is cheap, people are like, oh, I'm fine. Like it's all good, because people really depend on gas, and it's a huge portion of their budget for a lot of people. So, I mean, I can understand that, but it's also, people put a lot of stock, somewhat unjustified in my opinion, in gas prices. And so, I think that you tell people it's going to even be $1 more expensive, and you're going to already get a bunch of people that'll be resisting it. So, a little more maybe, and maybe if they can bring the cost down at some point. But I think what I was saying was best case scenario was like $8 a gallon, once it is available for the public. And again, that's assuming they figure out distribution, which will be a giant pain in the butt, and figure out how to get it to every station and who they partner with, for this fuel. And, that's going to make it harder to find, because you're probably only going to have it at one or two brands of fuel, and it's a whole thing. But I think Dodge, though, I think Dodge is going to be fine. Again, there will be a lot of people that will resist the electric thing, but they're having the inline six turbo. And again, once both of those start putting up impressive times at the track, I think especially the gas version will still be there for people who want to resist. They might miss their V8s, but they'll still have a turbo V6. It'll still be a really, impressive motor. And I think that's a fine consolation prize if people must have the brand new car and they don't want to just stick with their current one. So I think Dodge will be okay as well. And the e-fuel thing is so, if you aren't Porsche or one of these other companies that has already developed it or started on this path, it's such a long time to ramp it up that, they're going to be behind the ball if they try to do it on their own, or even if they tried to partner up with Porsche, since again, Porsche's already got their plans in their mind there. Let me see. Linda, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships as well. I really appreciate the generosity there. And yeah, happy to see a bunch of people were able to grab those. Thanks for stopping by, Linda, as well. Hope you're doing good. And Hugo, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, also out of topic, but my girlfriend and I got engaged. Congrats. That's awesome. And all right, it's the season of love, I guess, here. We got 2 proposing, and Hugo freshly engaged. That's great. Hope everything goes great for all of you. And that's awesome. All right, so getting back to the other member questions here. Austin says, thanks for the dash cam info. It's good to see you reviewing so many exotic vehicles lately, but that orange Aston Martin made me kind of nauseous. It's a lot. Yeah, it's one of those vehicles that I feel like I had to adjust my eyes after I got out of it, because it's just like you're in a tanning bed or something, like with your eyes open. I've never been in a tanning bed, but I imagine it'd be like being in that Aston Martin with that bright orange interior. But yeah, it was an experience. I mean, it's the launch car, media car. You want to have it stand out, and it's great for the thumbnail and all that. So I'm not complaining, but yeah, I would not be specking it like that myself. Ford Enthusiast says, hey Matt, do you think Ford/GM will ever bring the manufacturing outside of the US back? The Chinese, Mexican, and South Korean stuff. I don't think so. And there's a good reason why. I mean, there's a reason why Trax is as cheap as it is. There's a reason why, they have the ability to make Equinox EV, as cheap as they do. There's those types of things where, again, you got to do what are people going to buy? Again, it all comes down to price. People might say, oh, I want something that's built in America, but then you're paying American labor prices. And for some companies, they can make that work and they can juggle that. and come out with a product that people feel like is worth paying a premium for. But Trax, for example, is selling super hotly, and those I think are built in South Korea. And I mean, obviously, at least in my opinion, South Koreans build excellent cars. The modern Hyundais and Kias being great. And so, but I mean, that's why Trax is that price. If you had Trax built elsewhere, it'd be more expensive, and then it wouldn't sell as much. So I think that's the bottom line. It all comes down to pricing, and I don't think that it'll ever. I mean, at least I sure hope that American labor never gets that cheap. That it. I mean, South Korea, has pretty decent labor rates, I believe. So I'm not sure, how the savings comes about there. But as far as China and Mexico, it just, if we are paying our workers the same as China and Mexico pays, then we got bigger problems than whether or not cars are being built in the U.S. We have higher wages, and I think that's something that we should cling on to for sure. And if that means we pay a few bucks extra for our cars, or we deal with the idea of them being built elsewhere, I think that's okay. Because again, I think workers' wages already aren't keeping up with inflation. They need to be higher than they are, but certainly we can't, go to lower wages. So I'm all for making sure that those workers are empowered to, be paid what they should be paid, in my opinion. And Raphael says, how can major car companies not have realized that there would be a gap between early adopters and everyone else? That's purchasing. I know. I feel like, I don't know. I'd have to go back in my weekly updates. I could have sworn that at some point I also said the same thing, like back when this was super hot. I feel like I remember saying, like, EV sales are super hot right now. It probably won't be this way forever. But they're really hot right now, and this is why I told people back in 2021, 2022, do not pay a markup on an EV. It's going to burn you. I mean, that's why even with the Mach-E, we went out of state to get it at MSRP, which was a big accomplishment back in 2022. Most Mach-Es were still 5 to 10 grand over, and now here we are with people throwing 5 or 10 grand on the hood of those things. And ours, was a $50,000 Mach-E. We leased it, thankfully, so we're not on the hook for that, but it's now worth $24,000 on trade-in with 12,000 miles, So, yeah, I know, Rafi. It seems like every company is like saying one of their executives, at one point or another has said, oh, like, this isn't what we were expecting, and this, that, and the other. I think that the trap that these car companies fell into was that they are car company executives. And yes, the purchasing thing, like you said, is kind of a universal principle. But I think that they still were like, this is a car. It is going to act like a car as far as its desirability, its purchase, demand curve and interest curve and all that. They were still looking at this like this is a car and not as a piece of technology. And an EV is really obviously still a car, but much more on the technology side, especially when we're talking about EVs, which are more experimental, more beta test kind of things. And again, I mean, like I've said in the past, it's every year, same deal with the iPhone. They're sold out for a month. People are flipping them for double on eBay or whatever. And then once everyone who must have one gets one immediately, then Black Friday rolls around and they start, Verizon or whatever is saying, oh, get 2 free iPhones on us when and you get all these deals coming in around the holidays because guess what? They know that cliff. You have everyone wants one. Everyone that is obsessed with it, they get it, on launch day or whatever in the first month. They have their phones, and now you have to convince the people on the fence to get, buy one, get one free or whatever. It's exactly the same with EVs. It's identical. Obviously, it's a longer curve than, a 1 year product cycle, but it's the same exact thing. And we are in that Black Friday moment now for EVs. And I mean, they are Black Friday deals pretty much. I mean, like I said, anyone who's on the fence, if you want an EV, I mean, it's so hard to time anything, but I would say this is probably one of the best times ever you'll get to get an EV for a huge discount because it will come back, whether we're talking second gen stuff or, improvements in infrastructure, convincing people, the Tesla supercharging thing becoming more common knowledge that, hey, I can plug into a Tesla stop. Oh, well, there's Tesla stops everywhere. I'm fine. I'll buy an EV now. And, once the non-car people figure some of this stuff out and kind of get past some of the common misnomers and misinformation out there about EVs, I think they will sell themselves. And it's just that, again, we're just in that on the fence phase right now. And so, but yeah, it is mind boggling to me. I mean, I don't want to, act like I, would have called it myself, because, again, I'm sure it's an easy trap to fall into. If this is a car, it should act like a car, but it's really, shouldn't be viewed like that, from a marketing standpoint, I don't think. But yeah, it is wild that no one was able to correctly call this outside of Toyota. I think Toyota actually did play this perfectly. They have the EV for people who said you must have an EV. Okay, fine. Here's our EV. And I actually think the BZ4X, once they did this offer update, is a better EV than people give it credit for. People love just running that thing through the dirt, but it is actually a nice driving EV in my opinion. But Toyota did it perfectly. So I think honestly, Toyota is the only one. But I think they saw that curve that no one else saw, and that's why they are killing it with having what everyone else has been going to be working on for the next 5 years. Trying, well, maybe we should do some plug-in hybrids, like General Motors now. Like, do we pull them from China? What do we do? And everyone's caught with their pants down. And like Toyota's like, here you go. I just wish Toyota would actually turn out production better on the primes, and they've completely dropped the ball on RAV4 prime production, in my opinion. But I mean, they're churning out the hybrids at an impressive rate, and they are playing it perfectly. This is why they're having record sales. I think record profitability too, if I read correctly. I'm remembering that. I mean, so I think Toyota did play it well. Everyone else didn't. But Kyle says, I saw a Mach-E GT with a black exterior, black rims, and red brake calipers. Looks really nice, actually. Yeah, I agree. I think they're certainly growing on me. I'm surprised. Beth and I keep commenting. We see, there's a lot of Mach-E's now. I think, again, once they got cheap, again, a lot of people's reservations go out the window once the price is right. A lot of Mach-E's on the road now, and surprisingly around here, they're all like the bright, crazy colors. Like they're like the cyber yellow, the blueberry color, whatever that's. I think they call it grabber blue. I think it's not quite the real grabber blue, but grabber blue. All these bright colors, people are going for those too, and I'm like, sweet, people aren't afraid of colorful cars, at least Mach-E buyers, so that's cool. Even though we weren't unfortunately able to support that cause ourselves with our space white one, but it's really great to see so many colorful Mach-E's out there. But yeah, they look great in black too. Steven says, as a car reviewer, were you ever offered crazy perks and or discounts on used/new cars? No, not really. Supposedly there are some companies that offer, or at least used to offer, like a media journalist discount, which I think is essentially kind of just like a corporate discount, like the same. I think they just kind of extend the same discounts to journalists that they would have, for the PR people in the brand themselves. But that seems like it has gone by the wayside, because even like I've talked to others who have been wanting to like buy vehicles, and they've reached out to car companies, and the car companies will like help them get either like an allocation, or they'll help them find a vehicle, or I think very rarely someone is able to buy a press car after it's run its rounds, and so you can pick up like a lightly used, of whatever you want if it's, in the press fleet. I don't know if they actually offer that very often, or if it's because I've never had anyone like actually offer me anything. I've heard about stuff through the grapevine, but yeah, I don't know of anyone that's actually bought a press vehicle ever, or anyone that's actually gotten any kind of discount from a car company, to be completely honest. Everyone I know of that has purchased vehicles in the past few years, I don't think any of them got any kind of special accommodations at all, aside from, again, maybe a lot of these, like with the ordering for some of these EVs and stuff, they just like made sure that the order didn't get pushed to the back of the line or whatever. But I mean, even some of that, they didn't even get bumped to the front or anything. It was just like making sure you were taken care of during the process in a way. But that's pretty much it. I mean, like for me personally, like the one like with the Bullet, I think I've talked about this in the past. They did offer me VIP ordering for the Bullet, and so that was something that I just was like, sure. I mean, I already had I was already first on the list at my dealer, so it didn't help me that much, honestly. But the only thing the VIP ordering did is it allowed me to get a super low VIN. in exchange for that, I did have to, with the Ford thing, I signed a agreement that I wouldn't sell it for 3 years. The same thing they make like Ford GT buyers sign. They made me sign that for the Bullet. I was like, that's fine because I don't plan to ever sell the Bullet, and I was totally fine with that, and I thought it was worth it. The trade off to get a super low VIN. So that was something that I. But that was the other thing. But even that, there was no discount. Like they were like, whatever you do with the dealer is on you. We are just giving you a low VIN. And again, even that came with a string attached with a condition of not selling it. So but that's and I mean, I think a few other people I've heard, I had the VIP kind of thing offered, but that's about it. That's a good question. It's fun to talk about some of those behind the scenes things. So thanks for asking, Stephen. Ford says the Mach-E is my favorite EV. You wouldn't say, Ford enthusiast. I can't believe it. I guess you could have said Lightning as well, but yeah. Our Mach-E has been pretty good aside from those rear brakes that I've complained about in the past. And Rafi, thanks for stopping by. And let me see. Dylan says, have you heard anything new about the Ram Charger targeting 690 miles of range due to gas engine being a generator? Sounds pretty good. Probably would have half that range when hauling. Yeah, Ram Charger is a brilliant idea, and it's strange that it's been silent. I haven't heard anything since the initial reveal. They had one at the Ram launch for the regular 1500s, back at the beginning of this year, but it was just sitting there. No one was driving it. It was not like a review unit or anything. It was just like, remember we showed off this and the electric one or whatever. I don't know if there's a holdup there or if they just are focused on regular 1500 quality being good, since they've kind of got off on the wrong foot a little bit with that. So I'm not sure if that's something they're working on or what. But I can't even remember. I thought they said Ram Charger was supposed to come by the end of this year. I haven't heard anything to the contrary, but I haven't seen anything encouraging suggesting that is actually happening. I haven't even seen like test mules running around or anything. So I don't know. It's a great question. Ram Charger, I mean, it's going to come eventually, and it sounds like that is going to be the powertrain that's going to go into the Wagoneer as well. And they're going to have, a plug-in hybrid kind of version of that too. But I think it's a fantastic idea. It's a great gateway to EVs for people. Because again, if I remember correctly, the Ram Charger, I think has like 120 miles of electric range or something to that effect. And so, people are going to realize, like, I'm never using this gas engine, even though they think that they are going to use it all the time. And I mean, some people will, who tow or whatever, but, I think most people are going to be like, you know what? Like, I actually am completely fine with even 120 miles of range. And don't even, need to have these giant range EVs that, people think they need. I think it's one of those things, once you're actually living with it, you realize it's really, not any kind of hardship, but great to have the gas engine there. And I think it's, a very good idea. Good Stick says, just wait until all non-car people are in driverless cars, then us car enthusiasts will be the main market. Yeah, that is actually another interesting component about driverless cars is, how do they market, the driver stuff? And it could be like, a complete renaissance for enthusiast vehicles. That's actually a really good point, Good Stick. I hadn't considered that side of the coin. That would be really cool. Yeah, and I mean, there's also I'm just like this. I'm thinking out loud here, so I apologize if I'm just rambling. But it will have to, if it does actually go that way, where like only enthusiasts are the ones driving cars, and so therefore car companies kind of all turn into enthusiast brands. The only problem with that is there's going to be a lot less buyers. So does that luxury of driving your own car become a true expensive luxury where, sure, they'll all sell sports cars, but those sports cars are all going to be more expensive because how do you spread out development costs over a car that only 1,000 people are buying? You end up with Porsche pricing or whatever. So, and we've kind of, if we eventually do continue down this dystopian future of, cars just becoming horses, essentially, who has horses? Rich people for the most part, So I hope it doesn't get to that, but, as we see pricing rise on cars already, and then you start cutting the market down a bunch because everyone's in driverless pods, you could end up in a situation where, you have the current stuff out there and people who want to, keep the current stuff running can keep that. But if you want a new car, it might be an expensive proposition that eventually becomes a fun thing for people that can afford that. And that's going to be, again, a very steep price. And then also insurance costs related to that. If everyone on the road is an enthusiast, there's going to be probably you would hope that everyone would be better drivers, but there's also going to be the people, again, like I said earlier, that are going to ruin it for everybody by being idiots. And so, insurance rates will be way higher. And again, less demand for gas. So gas will be more expensive. And it could be a real bad, snowball that happens there, and then gets it to where, again, it just is a thing for the rich and truly becomes like the horse. But hopefully it doesn't. We'll stay positive. And sorry, I missed the member question there from Rafi. Thanks for being a member for 2 years, Rafi. That's awesome. Thank you so much for the support. He says, thanks for all that you do. Great recent reviews. If we want affordable cars, we'd bring the Matt Moran brand of cars to life. That is true. I would love to see that happen someday. Maybe if I truly get washed up on eBay or on YouTube here all the way, I can go to selling some kind of cheap car somehow and do something like that. But I do not have the financing for that. That would be a very tough thing to get into, especially again with the future we might be facing here. Thanks so much, Rafi, for being a member for so long. It really means a lot. And Chad, thank you so much for a super chat. He says TFL has a 9-year-old i8 that's fast and beautiful and for under $50,000 used. Where's the competition? That's a good question. I think the thing to keep in mind, though, with any German vehicle like that, that's cheap, is that parts are expensive, labor is expensive with the European brands when they're old, and they can have some problems. I mean, I talked to Roman, actually. We were on this AVA event together, and I said, like, how's the i8 holding up? Is it like pretty reliable? Does it have any issues? Have you had any error messages, anything like that? He's like, no, it's been like totally solid. And I'm like, well, that is awesome to hear. I hope it stays that way. And I think that especially BMW has been one of the more reliable brands as far as, European stuff goes. But I still would be nervous without an extended warranty and something like that. But I'm glad it's treating him well. And yeah, it's a fantastic car. It's another car. I think the i8, it was always like a head turner, but I feel like mechanically and like from a reviewer standpoint, it never got the love that it deserved either, of being so future forward. And just so, exciting, with a different take on an enthusiast vehicle. But as far as where's the competition, yeah, I mean, there's really nothing, right? For i8, there's no one else was brave enough to do something like that, So it is really, I think, in a class of its own, honestly. And Raphael, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, the end of vacation, I ended up riding through 9 states from Monday morning to Thursday night. Got home completely exhausted and happy. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad. Thanks for giving us an update there on your epic tour. That is great, man. 9 states. That's impressive. I'm glad you enjoyed it and glad it all worked out well for you and you came back safe and happy. That's awesome. So yeah, congrats, Raphael. That's a huge accomplishment as well to be able to pull that off. So that's awesome. Let me see, getting back to other member questions here. So let me see. Zachary says, I have to bite my tongue when clients come into my shop and say stuff like Ford is making a new Pinto and Chevy is bringing back the Chevelle with a V8 when they just can't tell AI from reality. Yeah, buckle up. That is the future we are in for. Again, I'm going to stay positive here, but, it is impressive. I mean, and we've all seen this with all the, misinformation, disinformation and stuff that's out there, and people just, don't fact check. I mean, it's not hard to fact check, but it's something that doesn't happen in a lot of areas and in our world. And so it's just one of those things where, channels that, and especially TikTok and stuff like that, where they're just out for views. They don't, really care about anything else. They go for what's going to get the views, and people see that stuff. And, if it's a convincing looking picture, that's all it takes for some people to believe. So, I am not excited for AI It is not. It's not going to be great. I mean, there's sometimes where AI comes in handy. Actually, this week's weekly update thumbnail that was actually partially AI. That move over warning sign. Obviously, there's no car company that actually has an image like that, but I, put it in the AI thing and it churned that out. And that makes for a great thumbnail. That highway image, that background thing was also a AI generated thing. And it makes a lot of things easier for me, for those basic things where I had to think something up or try and find a stock image before that was free and copyright free and all these types of things. So there are some of those things that are nice, and I'm sure it helps a lot of other people in a lot of other ways, but man, it's going to be terrifying when no one knows what's real anymore, because that's where it's going to go. And people are going to be questioning reality way more than they ever have before. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Austin says Honda should make a new Del Sol then to keep the cost down. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see all that stuff come back. Just again, we got to start buying new two doors in good numbers to send that message to them that they can do more two-door stuff. Maybe if Prelude is some surprise hit, then maybe they will do another type of thing like that. But yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath for that. I'm amazed we're even getting Prelude. Because again, their whole justification for killing off Civic Coupe was that no one bought them, and then they're bringing it right back essentially with Prelude. But whatever, I'll take it. And Steven says, thoughts on Toyota discontinuing the Prime name? Yeah, that's strange. I talked about that in the weekly update as well. To me, Prime wasn't confusing, but I even was talking to Beth about this this weekend as well, and she's like, yeah, like even I mean, she obviously hears a lot of stuff from me, and she's a little bit more plugged in now that she's been with me for 10 years. But even she's like, yeah, like why is Prime confusing? But again, if you are someone who knows nothing about cars, you probably think it's related to Amazon. You think is this like the Amazon Basics version of a Toyota or something? Why is it called a RAV4 Prime? If you try and put your head in a complete, I mean, it's crazy. Like I'm on Threads, and the algorithm on there is wild with, it knows I'm into cars. So it like gives me car stuff, but not from car people. Instead, it pushes like questions that people have who like know nothing about cars. And the algorithm again knows I can't resist it. It's like looking at a car crash or something. Like I got to be like, all right, what does this person think about this car? And it's been a real reality check for me, and it's probably healthy for me to like again get myself out of the car world and be like, what do regular people think? Because I think it helps me to market my videos better, knowing the easy confusion that to me again is obvious, but for a lot of people is not obvious, and appreciating the fact that I need to spell things out more. I need to make things more clear, and I think it's just something Toyota's learning as well, I guess, of like, we got to literally spell it out, plug-in hybrid RAV4. And even that, I got comments, people saying that they had to still explain to their parents what a plug-in hybrid is. Even my own parents, I had to explain to them just a few months ago, I had some kind of plug-in hybrid. I think it was like when I had the Outlander plug-in hybrid. I said, yeah, it's a plug-in hybrid. They're like, so what is a plug-in hybrid? I mean, it's a very real, like, again, people just don't know still. And so, from Toyota's standpoint, if people don't even know what a plug-in hybrid is, then like, okay, well, we got to at least get, start by calling it a plug-in hybrid, get people familiar with this idea. Again, baby steps when you're talking about non-car people. And again, it's not their specialty. I can't expect people to know this stuff, but again, all of us, we talk the lingo, we know all this stuff already. But I think that's just one of those things with Toyota. It's one of those reality checks of them also recognizing that and trying to make things as easy to understand for the general public as possible. Even though again, Prime is a way cooler name. Chart and Car Guy, thanks for stopping by. Hope you're staying cool there in Arizona now. And Jordan says, can the government make tech like Nissan's lane passing, Blue Cruise, blind spot monitoring, LiDAR mandatory in the future instead of companies charging for options? Absolutely. They totally could. But it's always one of those things. Is it practical? Is it cost effective? Is it something that is going to move the needle enough for all the feathers that it ruffles? All those types of things are kind of the things, like, yes, the government would probably love for people to have good lane discipline, but how high is that on their priority list? not very high. So I don't think we will see a mandatory alert telling people to get out of the left lane. Like that's probably not going to happen, unfortunately. LiDAR, I could see that being mandatory on driverless stuff potentially. But I think, like we actually saw the car companies do the right thing, in my opinion, a decade ago or whatever, whenever, backup cameras, kind of everyone agreed like this should be a thing that should already be coming anyway. The government did step in and like be like, okay, yes, like for the few holdouts, like we need to have this as a mandatory thing now. And so that was, I think, a good improvement. I think also, the automatic emergency braking, that was something the car companies together, a large chunk of them just voluntarily said, like by, I think it was 2018, we're all going to have this as standard in our brands. And it wasn't all of them, but it was, a lot of brands. And that, again, that was something they all just agreed on. And I think you could have those types of safety advancements happen with car companies just all agreeing this is a good idea. This should all be, something that happens. And I think we're kind of seeing blind spot monitoring. It's these interesting shifts that are happening with technology where, like, blind spot monitoring used to be an extra cost option on everything. And then once competitors saw that a few people made the leap to making it standard, then like, okay, well, now we have to make a standard too. Like, I think it was last year or a year before, Mazda made blind spot monitoring standard in most of their models, I believe. And then, this year we see a lot of other companies jumping on board that same train. Same thing with adaptive cruise. It's like, well, whenever Toyota's throwing it in for free with a Corolla, it looks bad if you don't have it for free, aside from the European luxury brands, which still have no problem charging people extra for that. With a straight face. It blows my mind. But, as far as mainstream brands, I'm like, okay, well, if it's free on a Corolla, we have to make it free too. And so now Chevy is finally, for these 2024s and 2025s, made adaptive cruise standard finally. We're seeing it like Nissan Kicks now has it as standard. These low cost cars that, they're still cheap, but they, decided like these are the things that are important. Maybe we cut corners in other ways, but we're going to make these things, top. And I mean, the stuff works too, like the automatic emergency braking. Like I think rear endings, I can't remember the number. I'm not good with statistics off the top of my head, but it's been a significant drop in people getting rear-ended as a result of those systems, or at least the severity of those rear endings has been a lot less. Even if it doesn't stop it completely, it still is better. And so, I think those things are great, but, I think the car companies, it should really, be something they just are doing on their own. I think it's good when you have regulations get in there, if it's something that truly is necessary, but with things where it's, not absolute mandatory things like Blue Cruise or something like that. I think that's where, you just leave it on the car companies to duke it out and figure out, what makes sense, for them and their buyers and what they want to do to compete. That's a great question. Thanks for asking, Jordan. Let me see. So I think we have a couple of different super chats. Apologies, everyone. And also thanks, Kyle, for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity there. I'm happy to see a bunch of people able to grab those as well. But Luke, thank you for the super chat. He says, I really wish there was a WRX hatchback. Yeah, and I mean, they're selling it in Mexico, the WRX wagon. And it's like, if you can justify it in Mexico, I mean, I'm just talking about like volume, sales volume. I don't know how many WRXs they sell in Mexico, but I am 99.9% confident it is way less than they sell here in the States. So if you can justify it for Mexico, and again, this isn't like a safety thing because it's all the same as far as, safety tests and all that. As far as the WRX is the WRX, it doesn't, there's not like they cut out on safety stuff for Mexico or anything like that. I can't think of any good reason why we don't have it, especially since it's already in Mexico. So I hope the Subaru comes around and offers that finally. It still is, later than it should be, but if it comes at some point here, I think that'll be, a nice recognition that Subaru is willing to, give people what they want and are actually listening to the enthusiasts a little bit. But yeah, I'm right there with you, Luke. And thank you for the super chat again. And Chad, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, EV drivers are being personified as the worst drivers. Too much reliance on tech. I've seen Tesla drivers in particular being bashed for the driving because of the full self-driving of them, kind of not driving. And I mean, that's something I often say as well. I see a lot of bad Tesla drivers myself. So I'm perpetuating that stereotype, I suppose, or the assumption of that stereotype. But I see it a lot. And, it's also another one of those things, again, as a trying to take yourself out of a car person standpoint, as a non-car person, if Elon tells you this is full self-driving and the car company says this thing that you're paying extra for is full self-driving, that's as clear as it gets, especially when you throw in the autopilot thing on top of that. Like, so why wouldn't people have total trust in it? Because they've been told it is full self-driving. And this is why, they're going to be sued. I mean, they are in the middle of all kinds of lawsuits and hopefully many more to come to like fix this naming. I mean, just be honest about what it is and what it isn't. And it's not full self-driving. And I don't think will be for a while still. So I think, some of that is their problem. There's, the Tesla fanboys that are just overly confident and they hop in the back seat and, film a TikTok and, act like idiots. And, there's some of that, but then there's also just genuine people that don't know better. And that's the real tragedy, is the people that get hurt and killed because they were told it was full self-driving and it's not, so, but a lot of it is just the reliance on tech there for sure. But I don't really see that with too many other brands. Like there's been a few fatalities with Mach-E's hitting people while they're in Blue Cruise, but like every one of those has been, I guess you could say, abnormalities where like there is a car stopped on the actual highway. Like they didn't even pull onto the shoulder. Like they were stopped in a lane on the highway. And it's kind of one of those things where, like I think the one was actually in fog. So like, can you really blame the car or the driver for that one? And then as far as I think the second one, there was just another tragic one of someone who was under the influence whenever they crashed it and killed two people on the side of the road that were like working on their vehicle. And that one, obviously, like there was no excuse. The person should have been like driving and paying attention. And they were relying on Blue Cruise to help them while they were intoxicated. And obviously a bad idea. But even in that case, with that one, I believe, like, again, the car just like when you're coming up on a car that is completely stopped at 60 or 70 miles per hour, like the car should be able to slow it down. But if you're talking about like these people that unfortunately, lost their lives with that Mach-E accident, they were like not even in the car. They were on the side of the road. Like you get hit with a car at any kind of speed, it's going to be bad. So I think there's those types of things where like a car can only do so much, no matter how good the tech is. You're going to have those kinds of accidents if you're in that kind of a situation, So there's some of those things that are completely unavoidable, but then there are other times where, yes, people are too reliant on the tech and that gets them into trouble as well. So it's kind of a combination of both. There's always, more complexity to these things than, just a simple black and white, sadly. But yeah, it's just this world we're all trying to figure out, with tech and cars. And Deidre, thank you so much for a super chat as well. They say, hi, Matt. I got an Ioniq 5 a few weeks ago to haul the family around. The dealership let me drive the Ioniq 5N, and oh boy, it was so fun that I was thinking of trading in my FL5 Type R. Nice. Yeah, they are great. I mean, regular Ioniq 5, those, yeah, fantastic for sure. So congrats on that. And I'm sure you got a great deal on it. So well-timed purchase as well, I will say. Good on you. As far as the 5N, yeah, it is fantastic. It's so fun. I know it is so fun. And that's what, I don't know if you guys watched the last Grand Tour special, but hearing Jeremy Clarkson say like all new cars are crap and that like EVs are terrible. And like, not even like, you're whatever you want to think about like the merits of them and stuff. That's a whole nother thing. But he was like, they are not fun. There's like, and he even said like, you can't review them. I'm like, here I am. Like, I've already invalidated your statement. You can review them. I have. And at least in my opinion, I think that, some of the videos at least are entertaining, like the Ioniq 5N. It is fun. And I mean, if you go into it with a negative attitude, sure, you can hate on it and find every excuse, to not like it, but it's fast. It makes fun noises. And it makes you feel like you're Superman driving it because it's so capable and so impressive. And so that was, it was so disappointing, that last Grand Tour special, in my opinion. Just, I won't go on a tangent, but he's got other priorities now. Like he said, he doesn't even know half the new cars out there anymore. He's just out of the industry and he's lost interest. And I mean, there's lots of people like him, and it's fine. That's completely their prerogative to check out and become ignorant about the car world. That's fine. But, it's just a shame because he's got such influence And I see like some of these things have been packaged into little reels and shorts and TikToks and stuff, and all the comments are like agreeing with him. And so he does have influence, and I mean, there's a lot, again, he's not the only one that thinks this stuff, but like, again, you have an FL5 Type R, you enjoy the Ioniq 5N so much that you considered trading in your gas powered car for one of these terrible electric things. I think the Ioniq 5N is the desperate proof that like these things can be fun, and when there is promise there, whenever a car company is brave enough to take chances, and also has like the know-how to make a really damn good EV like Hyundai does, the results can be amazing. And it's a shame that Jeremy Clarkson won't ever give that a chance. But again, it's he's the old generation. We're coming in with a new generation here that is excited about this stuff, and we will find the fun in whatever is available. And it's crazy because there's so many miserable cars during his lifetime as well, that just to say that modern cars are crap when he lived through the era of Yugos and all the garbage in the 80s that all fell apart and rusted in 5 years, then he thinks modern cars are crap. Like, it just showed he was really out of touch. I just felt sad, honestly, hearing him say that stuff, to be honest. But anyway, I will get off my soapbox here, get back to the questions. Well, thank you so much for the super chat. And all right, so let me see, where were we again? I'm gonna get a drink here this time. Okay. Austin says, "Congrats to." Hope she says yes. Don't mention the basement. Right. Well, I can certainly accommodate an extra person in the basement if T wants to bring them along. And let me see. Cam Jam says, anyone else's dad been blasting Lady Marmalade from Moulin Rouge recently? Kind of a fire song, I cannot lie. Nope, can't relate to that. And Rafi says he'll have a new set of lyrics ready for us to celebrate. We'll pour a celebratory drink for you. Yep, that's right. All right. So maybe next week I should bring some whiskey and we can all cheers. Also, I have to do a posthumous cheers for a Hugo as well here. Maybe next week I'll bring out some whiskey. And let me see. Brian says, Knight Rider, Kit was the good guy and Carr was the evil opponent. Gotcha. I know Kit, but I never have watched this show, so I don't know about Carr. So thank you for the enlightenment there. And Austin says, cries in California gas prices. Yeah, it's amazing. Honestly, with the way gas prices are in California, it's amazing to me that anyone still has a gas car there. I mean, it's it's impressive the amount of money people spend on gas in California. And Linda, I know also electric's expensive in California too, so it's not a perfect solution, but still a nice savings, I think, for most people. But Linda says some folks live on such a tight budget. Yeah, and that's true, and that's it's just it's a sad state of affairs with the gas has such a chokehold on so many people from a pricing standpoint. Austin says, hey, Matt, speaking of your Hollywood career, it seems the film industry in general is experiencing a decline lately, so you probably made the right career choice. Yeah, I mean, there's that as well. It's I don't know what to think about the film industry, honestly, right now. I personally love it, but I'm also part of the problem. I haven't been to a movie since last year, for the Oppenheimer, Barbie combo that everyone was excited about. That was it. I haven't been back since. I used to go all the time. It's just, I think for me at this point in my life where I'm at, it's hard to, get out, with the toddler and all that. But it's something, we're hoping to get back to the theater here this fall and start, seeing some more stuff. But the whole thing, I did for a brief amount of time want to be an actor, and actually went to Hollywood with a friend to shop apartments. It even got that serious. This was like mid 2013. But it was just like, even back then I was like, there is such a slim chance, even though I would love to do this. And honestly, I just wanted to be like a regular on a TV show. Like, I just would love to have something that runs for multiple seasons, show up just act instead of trying to have to always hop from one gig to another. But it's just, yeah, it's tough these days, with the streaming services and social media, and again declining attendance at the theaters and stuff. It's tough. It's sad to see. But it's just, again, differences in the way people are consuming media. It's something I'm grappling with as well, with all the views I've lost to TikTok. It's same deal. So I guess in that way, thinking of it in that context, I made the right career choice at the time, and I have no regrets. But now I'm kind of still facing that problem of people having changing content preferences, and that's not working out for me great either. So it is what it is. But let me see. Chad, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, we have a local couple that makes their Lambos look like Mario Karts. Why can't more people have fun with their cars? Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I think for most people, though, a car, again, as a non-enthusiast, a car is an appliance. A car is a necessary evil that you must have, because most people need, that transportation to go from one place to another. And, it's, you talk to people that, like, one of the big perks of living in a city is the walkability of it and being able to walk places. No, I don't want to get in the car, versus us, we love getting in the car, but so whenever you have that mindset of a car being a burden and a pain and just this, mule that you're just, kicking down the road, it's, there's no incentive there to make it fun, aside from maybe a few stickers or something, but yeah, it'd be fun to see more people be more excited about, their cars and all that. But it's yeah, I mean, everyone's got their own priorities and bigger things to worry about, I'm sure, as well. But yeah, that's fun that you have a local couple with Lambos. It's got to be a cool couple. And thanks again, Chad, for the super chat. And let me see. So For Enthusiast says, smart to lease your Mach-E, Matt. I was told never to buy / finance an EV. Lease. Absolutely. That's what I was saying as well. I've been saying this whole time. We don't know how they're going to depreciate, but based on old EVs, they depreciate fast. So do not buy one if you can avoid it. I mean, or get a giant discount to, cut that out, like, with a used one or something like that. But yeah, leasing, we did the Ford options plan technically. So if you're familiar, Ford enthusiast, that allowed us to get the tax credit back in 2022 when you had to buy it to get that credit. So that gave us the credit, but, it's set up like a lease. So there's a balloon payment at the end. We can either pay that and keep the car, or we can turn it in to Ford, which we will most likely be doing, whenever that is up in 2026. And Cars says, I've been interested in EVs since I was a kid and watched a rerun of a 1981 Mr. Rogers episode several years later that featured a custom electric vehicle from Electric Vehicle Industries. Wow, I had no clue that was a thing. And Mr. Rogers was like a legend around here because he's, that was all filmed in Pittsburgh, and he's from Pittsburgh and all that. I had no clue. I'll have to dig that up. That's fascinating. That he had the foresight to include that in an episode. And yeah, I mean, there was, like Chevy S10 EV, that was a thing that they did a few of, and it was the GM EV1. I mean, this is something that's been, there's EVs, dating back over 100 years. So, I mean, that was a thing that always had promise and just, was finally able to gain momentum thanks to Tesla. Give credit where credit is due. Tesla is what turned around the EV thing and made them, a mainstream cool thing, because they were always nerdy, lame, little weird science experiments before, and Tesla's what saved that. But I'll have to check that out. And yeah, Mr. Rogers, what a legend. Wish he was still around to weigh in on things these days. But also Carr says, later I had wanted to buy a Dodge Circuit EV shown at the 2009 New York International Show. Supposed to be released in 2010 before being canceled. I'm waiting for an EV until battery tech and safety are improved a bit. Yeah. And so that's, I think a lot of people are in the same shoes as you. And, it's got to get to, a comfort level that everyone's, comfortable with. And that's different for everybody. And Cam says, speaking of the new iPhone, I got a 16 today. I'm kind of disgusted with myself, but I had to upgrade from my old phone because the battery was so degraded, or degraded 100% to dead in half an hour. Wow, that is bad. I've had iPhones my entire life, and I've never had, I don't know what phone you had before that, but that is wild. I mean, I've never kept my iPhones more than like 2 or 3 years typically, but that is, man. Well, yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, it's again one of those things, you got to get what you got to get, and so if you need a new phone, there's nothing you can do about it. But for enthusiasts said cars, I saw that Mr. Rogers episode as well. Amazing how far EVs have come since then. Man, yeah, I can't believe I've never even heard of that. I'm gonna have to dig that up. Thanks for the info on that. 1981, so I'll have to remember that and look that up. My daughter would probably get a kick out of that, considering she's been kind of slowly learning the difference about like this car makes noise, this car doesn't, and she's slowly grasping that whole idea. Truck and Car Guy says, honestly, Toyota's playing it very well with the new Camry being hybrid only, new Prius actually being somewhat desirable, and I'm sure they're working on hybridizing the trucks as well. Yeah, I mean, they already have they call it a full hybrid. It's more of like a mild hybrid in reality with the way it works, just because it's so limited in those trucks. But yeah, I think they're nailing it for sure, and I'm excited to see these new range extender plug-in hybrids Toyota's got coming supposedly in around 2026. If they stick to that plan, that's going to be great. And again, really help get people, more acclimated to electric range and how much range you actually need in your daily life, and help people to, again, get to that point of, being comfortable, not having a giant battery. Excuse me, Truck and Car Guy says they actually have their cafe low enough to take the hit from the Supra 86 and the other GR products to keep the enthusiasts happy. Yeah, that's another great thing about Toyota. Yeah, they did that, and I mean that's also why we have V8 Mustangs still, because Ford really dove in head first with Mach-E and Lightning. So it's great. And Goth Rocker says, Matt, I know you won't agree because you have a Mach-E, but it still bothers me seeing the Mustang emblem on that vehicle. For me, it will never be a Mustang. They should have named it the Mach-E. I agree. No, I'm right there with you. I still don't like that it's got a Mustang badge on it. For me, I was just able to divorce the Mustang badging from the car itself to not ruin the experience. So it's a really good EV, and for us, it fit what we were looking for better than any of the others, really. And so, that's why I just kind of made my peace with it. I mean, we still, Beth and I both call it the Mach-E. We have never, ever once called it the Mustang. Never once. Even after now, the Bullet's been gone, for a while. We never call it the Mustang. And I never will, because I agree. It should have never been called a Mustang. Mach-E would have been fine, or the zillion of other cool historical names that Ford could have done that actually sound electrical in nature. Yeah, it was completely the wrong call. I mean, again, we're still talking about it all these years later, so I guess in that regard, it's the right call for them. But yeah, completely soiled the Mustang name, unfortunately, with that. I see Aziz is watching the Ravens game. Yeah, I know. Family members were upset about the Steelers today as well. So if you're a Ravens fan, you're not alone with the misery today. Steven says, from my recollection, I remember you prefer the RAV4 Prime over the other subcompact SUVs. Other than the Prime horsepower, what are the other reasons why you prefer the Prime? So for me, the things about Prime that I like the best are that the electric range is the best. The electric motors are the best. So you can do a full highway merge in that vehicle and it isn't impeding the flow of traffic. You can actually do like pretty aggressive highway merge, in my opinion, in electric mode. I also love that the Primes, even if you are floored all the way, like mashing the gas as hard as you can, there is no kick down switch or anything to kick on the gas engine. Like it is, if you are in electric mode, it is going to give you all the electric juice it can give you. And then that is it. It will not kick on the gas engine. And that's a key differentiator from all of the other plug-in hybrids. I mean, I don't think anyone outside of Toyota actually forces you to stay in that EV mode. I mean, you can change it if you want yourself, but as far as the gas pedal is concerned, Hyundai, Kia, Volvo, all these other companies that do pretty good plug-in hybrids, every single one of them, your foot goes to the floor or kicks a kick-down switch, like in the Mazda CX-90 and CX-70 plug-in hybrid. Like those will stay in EV mode, but then there's a little button there on the bottom of the gas pedal, and you hit that, and then gas engine fires up, and then, you're out of the electric stuff. So, I think the Primes, you can actually drive like a real EV with real EV power, with real, dedication to not using a gas engine. Now, I mean, the primes still have to kick on the gas engine, to run the fuel through the tank, every 6 months or a year or something like that. But, it's just the closest you can get to a truly electric driving experience in a plug-in hybrid. And that's what I really like about it the most. I mean, again, a lot of the others are really good, but most of the other plug-in hybrids, I just find myself even struggling to truly test the electric range, because it's like, inevitably at one point or another, I end up pressing the gas a little too far, and then it kicks on the gas engine. Then the gas engine is running for a few minutes, helping out the battery, recharging the battery. And then I'm like, okay, well, now I have no clue how many miles of actual electric range I'm getting, because, it's just mudding the waters there and not giving me an accurate, strict EV driving range. So yeah, that's really the main reason why I love the primes the most. And they're also just really well done vehicles in all the other ways too. So I think it's the 1-2 punch of like RAV4 is already like best selling thing outside of F-150, and then you give it the best plug-in hybrid thing you can give it, and then it's, to me, the best one. Now, it's unfortunately the most expensive one and the hardest one to get. It's like impossible to get one still, and I don't know what's going on with the supply chain at Toyota. They still, all these years later, cannot figure out how to build RAV4 primes in decent numbers. It really is maddening to me, because I think if our goal is to truly reduce greenhouse gas emissions with these vehicles, like RAV4 Prime could do it more than any other vehicle on the planet, like overnight. If every RAV4, or even half the RAV4s out there were RAV4 Primes, and all these people are driving electric RAV4s all of a sudden, when you're selling 400,000 units a year, I mean, that would drastically, bring those numbers down quickly. That's a lot of cars, and instead they're selling a few thousand a year. And it's like, what's even the point? I mean, it's fantastic and it's great for those few people that can get them, but like, it actually, RAV4 Prime was one of the few cars that's come around in the past decade or so that, like, to me, like, truly could have like changed and revolutionized a lot, in the car world, as far as, what is possible. I think, other companies are slowly coming around to this idea, and everyone's copying Toyota now. But like, if RAV4 Prime was a huge, massive hit in 2021 and they sold 100,000 of them or something, we would have come to this realization 3 years ago that we should be doing plug-in hybrids right now to give people that gateway, instead of coming to this, after this whole turmoil everyone's been in with, EVs and all that. So, yeah, it's just, I really wish, as well as Toyota has played everything, I think they definitely have dropped the ball with prime production, and they continue to. And I don't know when that's going to improve, but hopefully, they get that figured out someday, because they need to, if they ever want it to actually truly be mainstream. And Goth Parker says, Matt, thanks for still doing the weekly Friday news. I have to say, I find it odd that Ford sent you out for me to drive on the new Expedition, but yet not the new Mustang. Seems odd to me. Well, I didn't do a drive on the Expedition. It's just a early look at the vehicle. So I'll be covering that here on October 3rd is when that info comes out. So Ford started inviting me to things here in the past couple of months. I've said no to a couple of them, but Expedition, I figured, was important enough that it was, worth doing. And again, I can't really say anything about it currently, because again, that's all under embargo. But it just kind of lined up that I was like, okay, well, this is one that I'm going to do. And I hope that in the future they will do more. And it seems like the invites I'm getting are coming from like the family vehicle side of Ford, which I think is kind of now different from the enthusiast stuff. So I don't think I'm going to get, unfortunately, any of the invites for the enthusiast stuff, which I know is what most of you actually want to see, not the like family stuff. But, at least it's my foot in the door with Ford again, which is, nice. I don't know what changed, because I certainly, haven't changed. But for some reason I'm getting invites again. So yeah, not going to complain, and happy to take whatever I can get. And, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, as far as the Friday news, yeah, I'm going to keep on trying with that. But man, the views the past few months have really started to drop on those. So like I said, I think probably around the new year, I'm going to branch it out into its own channel, see if that saves it as a last ditch thing. If that doesn't significantly finally start to grow the views on the weekly updates, then I'm gonna have to pull the plug, because it's already getting to a point now where it's getting debatable, the amount of time I'm spending on it and how much, those videos generate. The weekly updates are kind of, on their way out, I think, if things don't improve, unfortunately. I love doing them, but it's just a lot of work for very few views that, no one watches after the first week. So we'll see what happens, but prepare yourselves for the weekly updates to potentially slowly go away in 2025, if things don't improve. But, in the meantime, share them with your friends, try and get, do everything you can to get the word out about the weekly updates if you enjoy them. But it seems like they're just not, they're not built to do very well, unfortunately. News ages very fast. And, anyone who's into car news probably has already heard all the stuff by the time I talk about it on Friday, so it's probably not the best setup, to be completely honest, for having a weekly, once a week news show. But it's, I know a lot of you enjoyed it, so we'll see how that goes, but, not optimistic, unfortunately, for those. But Cara says, last week I did a national search for the cheapest new Dodge Hornet and was surprised to find a bunch of them listed under $22,000. Nice. I mean, I could see that if there's actually, especially some of these base models, that are, 32 or so, I think now, and a lot of these dealers, are offering 10 grand off or more. I could see that, definitely being the case. And I mean, again, the Hornet is not perfect, but that's a lot of car for 22 grand. If you are someone on a budget, and you're willing to deal with a few little electrical gremlins and glitches here and there, I think the Hornet at 22 grand is a really good buy still. I would argue probably some of these used EVs that are like, 1 year old with 10,000 miles for 20 some $1,000 is probably a better buy, but Hornet at 22 grand, I can't fault anyone for buying one of those at that price. Honestly, that's a good solid buy. Goodstick says, I see sports cars only being used in the weekend and on occasions. With public transportation and autonomous vehicles, their main value is for daily commuting, so I think people can afford more. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We will see how it goes. I mean, public transportation has never really taken off either, unfortunately. So, I don't know. We'll see, again, how mainstream driverless stuff actually does end up becoming, assuming that it is actually safe and reliable. Because, I mean, even just driverless cars, as far as just like for people to buy, I mean, people have been surveyed about this endlessly. And I think over half of people don't even trust it. And especially with how much distrust there is in anything that's new or even remotely experimental or untested, I mean, people are just going to run the other way. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that are still going to be stuck in gas, regular driver vehicles for a long time because anything new is terrifying. And especially when you don't have control over that thing that is moving your body at high speed, it's going to be another one of those things where like beta testers and people that are, just more open to that kind of experimentation, are going to be, getting those driverless pods, but it's going to be another very slow adoption rate. You're going to see, again, people jump up and a bunch of people are going to hop in them all of a sudden in the beginning, and then it'll be one of these things, a long road of convincing people on the sidelines that they should trust a car to drive for them. It's going to be a long, long road. So I don't see that, changing overnight. Sean, thanks for stopping by. Says, what did I miss? Well, at this point, I know you probably asked that or said that a while ago, but got an hour and a half in here and lots of good stuff. So definitely check out the video after the fact here if you want to get caught up on everything. But having a good time as usual. The big news here is Tu is proposing tonight, and that Hugo actually recently got engaged as well. So we have love is in the air here for the members here of the Matt Maran Motoring Club. And let me see. Sorry, I missed the other couple of super chats that came in here. Linda, thank you so much for a super chat. She says, in my opinion, we have the GT500 because of the Mach-E. Absolutely. I think that is 100% accurate. They're able to do those extra gas guzzlers with the subsidizing that happened. And Luke, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, I'm looking forward to my 2025 Nissan Frontier. The Pro 4X model took quite a price hike. I like the look of it, but the SV has the features I require. Nice. That's awesome. I mean, and yeah, there's, it's one of those things. I always can respect someone that buys what they actually need, and doesn't splurge for the extras. and does the financially responsible thing. It's great. And yeah, hope it comes in soon for you and hope you enjoy it. I've actually, just was on the Nissan Kicks Drive event here this past week and asked them, if they're going to have a Frontier 25 in the press fleet anytime soon. I mean, I think he said it's something they're working on. So I'm hoping to, get one here to test out, with that new infotainment system soon. But yeah, Frontier is a great value these days. And, not perfect. It's, in my opinion, still has some downfalls, but it's the best value out there, for mid-sized trucks for sure. And thank you again for the super chat, Luke. And let me see. Car says, I had fun with last week's Hyundai tangent. Turns out their first model, the Cortina, was released in cooperation with Ford in 1968. First USA model was the 1986 Excel, rebranded Mitsubishi Mirage. Nice. Yeah, that was a fun little tangent. I agree. And but I guess there wasn't anything GM and Hyundai, right? Because that was what we were discussing, but I guess it was just the Ford stuff. Yeah. Let me see. Ford enthusiast says, I would never use any full self-driving for any car because I love to drive. Yeah, and I think there's gonna be a lot of people, even non-enthusiasts. I think there's a lot of just regular people that also just enjoy the act of driving. And so I think there is some staying power for sure to driven vehicles. And regardless of whatever Tesla has up their sleeve with a robo-taxi here next month. And Goodstick says, full self-driving is good in stop-and-go traffic. Everything else I drive myself. Nice. Yeah, and I mean, and something like that, certainly is obviously lower stakes there, to let the car kind of do that stuff for you. But that's good that it's actually good in stop-and-go traffic, because in my experience, all the adaptive cruise systems are not good in stop and go. Like, it's nice if you don't care about having like a car length in between you and the car in front of you, but like every time I try and use adaptive cruise in traffic, like everybody always cuts in on me and always, is like, sweet, there's a gap here, because the car has to be extra safe. And versus me, if I'm driving myself, I'm like right on someone's bumper, so people aren't cutting in and trying to cut the line. And so, yeah, for me, like adaptive cruise is just way too conservative in tight traffic for me to ever use it personally. But I've never tried full self-driving in traffic in a Tesla, so I'm guessing at that assertive mode, maybe that's one of the few instances where it actually does a good job. So that's nice. Ford enthusiast says, anytime I can help with info for anyone on any topic is a good thing. Always happy to have us all be more enlightened by everyone's knowledge. The rising tide lifts all boats kind of mentality. And Linda says, always a dilemma. When do you buy a newer car for the updated safety features? I like my 2017 Mustang, but it doesn't have auto stop, etc. It is a dilemma. When do you buy in like anything else? It's just, I think for a lot of people, it just comes down to when is it, appealing enough at the right price to, get you off the sidelines and be like, okay, well, I'm ready to make the dive now to go for whatever it is that you're after there. And so, yeah, it's I think, these days, if I were to like try and predict, safety tech in vehicles, we might see more and more companies rolling out, super cruise type vehicles with, hands-free driving. But again, if we're talking about enthusiasts here who like driving ourselves, I think that, the safety tech has gotten as far as it needs to get for the kind of stuff that we enjoy doing. So I think there's no wrong answer at this point. You can get something that's newer and has those basics like the automatic braking and stuff and be happy. I don't think you're going to feel like you missed out if, everyone all of a sudden in a few years has hands-free highway driving. I think a lot of us would be like, oh, I'm fine having my hands on the wheel on the highway. That's no problem. And, you won't feel like you missed out too badly. And Ford enthusiast says, Matt, Ioniq 5N or Mach-E Rally, which one would you get if you had the choice? I haven't driven the Rally or the new GT in general for the Mach-E, so hard for me to say, but not hard for me to say, I guess, because Ioniq 5N, I love the shifting, which you can't do in Mach-E. I love the sounds, which Mach-E doesn't really have great sounds. You don't have the actual power band sounds like you have in the Ioniq 5N. And I mean, we'll see if Ford has fixed the power distribution problem. I mean, now they finally have a more powerful rear motor versus it being a front bias system in the previous GT, which was, I don't know why they ever thought that was a good idea. But regardless, yeah, I think there's promise for Mach-E GT. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting it at some point to review for the revised versions here and the rally one. But 5N for me all day, every day. I adore that thing. If I could afford one, I mean, that's way up at the top of my list. There's a lot of really good cars I'd want in that kind of price bracket, but 5N is really up there. I mean, like I said, I think I said in my review, this year, at least so far, best car I drove all year. Best car, most fun. That includes the McLaren Artura. That includes the Aston Martin DBX. Like, I mean, they're incredible cars as well. But like, as far as truly doing something revolutionary, moving the ball forward for enthusiasts, and taking a risk, and and also executing it like very, very well. I have so much respect for Hyundai after 5N. It is, I mean, I already thought they were doing some of the most impressive stuff in the industry already with design and with just the boldness that they're doing and the values still and all that. But then to come out with something like 5N, which will be even better with the 6N, even if it's copy and paste, same powertrain in a sedan, yeah, it's going to be amazing. But even in the 5N, yeah, it's oh man, I could go on all night about how much I love that thing. Good Six says another issue with electric car drivers, especially with 1,000 horsepower EVs, people should be responsible and skillful with handling that kind of power. Absolutely. And I think I don't know where I read this. I just read a headline or something of either someone proposing we should have like limits on power for EVs or some type of like extra licensing involved for EVs, partially because of the extra weight involved, but also the extra power involved. And I mean, this is especially when you're talking about stuff like Hummer EV. I mean, you should have an understanding of like that kind of weight. Like you should have like a, Class C kind of license to understand the kind of weight that you're playing with something like that. I mean, Hummer EV does a very good job of making it very palatable and four-wheel steer for better maneuverability and all that. But I mean, the brakes are not big enough for how heavy and fast that thing is. So there's it would be good to see some extra regulation there, but especially in America, the word regulation is a dirty word. So it's not something we're ever going to see, unfortunately, and people will pay the price. And it's not great, but we have to let the market decide that on its own, and just deal with the consequences in the meantime. But I agree with you. It should be absolutely something that is people are made aware of, I guess. Good Six says most of these 1,000 horsepower EV buyers probably upgrade from a Corolla or a Prius. Yeah, probably in a lot of cases. There's a lot of that for sure. Mike says, Matt, do you think we will see eventually get a GR Prius? There's that rumor. When was that? Like last year about a GR Prius, and then I haven't heard anything about that since. It still might be coming. I haven't seen anything or heard anything. I haven't seen any spy pics or any new rumors. I completely forgot about that, but good question, Mike. I have no clue. I would hope so. I think, we just saw spy pics this week of the GRMN Corolla. We've been seeing spy shots for a while about GRMN Supra. So I think probably GR department, my guess is right now their focus is mostly on the MN stuff. And, those, again, riding super off into the sunset because that's most likely coming soon. And, Corolla, even this generation Corolla is a little bit dated. Now, whether they pull a Camry and give it a heavy refresh and stick with the same platform and therefore can keep the same mechanicals, whether they do that or not, and there is a new gen GR Corolla or not, I don't know. But, I think they're just kind of focused on probably those towards end of life kind of vehicles right now. And, GR Prius is a little bit on the back burner maybe, but there's no reason why. They're wanting to expand the GR brand. So there's no reason why they can't, devote extra resources to, investing in multiple rollouts and having, a lot of these things happening all at the same time. So it could come sooner, but I am completely clueless on that and haven't heard a single thing since those original rumors, unfortunately. TFIBW talking about too says wedding reception in the basement will have the GR Corolla limo ready. That's it. Daisy and Pippa will be the ring bearers. All right. Yep. Just no guarantees on them, especially Pippa. She is a flighty one. So if she takes off of the ring, you'll have to You have to go hunting for her, and she's a good hider sometimes. So good luck with that. But yep, that would be a sight to see. And Linda says, I'm not paying in the theater prices. I'll wait a few months and watch it on phone apps for a fraction of the cost. Yep. And there's a lot of that, especially with, the economy being the way it is, for a lot of people right now. That's one of the first things people cut is entertainment, so totally makes sense. I appreciate that, Linda, for sure. Especially with everyone paying all the money we pay for streamers and all these different subscriptions all the time. You got to get your money's worth out of those. And the Good Stick says, what is one thing that really makes you angry about non-car people? I don't know. I think, a while ago, I probably had more frustrations with non-car people, but I think, again, I've really had a lot of taking myself out of my shoes and putting myself into other people's shoes and kind of those reality checks, the past few years about, what non-car people think about things and why they think about things the way they do. I know one thing that always, I don't know if it's like a non-car person, but one thing that I always want to tell people is just that, people are always saying oh, I'm a cash buyer, and cash buyer, is going to give me a better deal and this, that, and the other. And people think that paying cash is good for the dealer. And I don't know when this ever, I can't imagine any point in time where this ever became a thing. I don't know how it ever became a thing where everyone was oh, cash, cash is great. It's dealers never made any money on cash deals, aside from whatever margin was on the car. But the large majority of every car deal is made in the back office with the financing and all the extra crap they try and throw in and stuff. It's not usually the margin on the car. I mean, sure, they make some there, but they make way more on the financing side. And so, I mean, this is why if you're smart and you actually want to pay cash, you only say that at the very end, once the numbers are finalized, then you bring that in. But a lot of the times, car companies are also pretty smart about tying deals and incentives to you using their financing and all that. And you can't get that stuff if you're going to, play games about whether or not you're a cash buyer. So but if you can get a deal in paper, you got to put that in writing there and then say, hey, by the way, you're not making any money off of me anymore because I'm now paying cash. But the amount of people that walk in on this high horse about oh, I'm paying cash, so you should roll out the red carpet for me. And it's it's the exact opposite. The second you say cash, you've just killed any hope of the dealer, one, even caring about you at all, honestly, and two, any leverage you thought you had with a cash deal just is non-existent, completely fictional in your own mind. It's not a thing. That doesn't make me angry. It's just I feel sad for people that think they're going to get a better deal than they will because of that. And just again, a misnomer that they didn't bother to ever fact check. Information is very readily available. You don't have to be a genius to figure out that car companies make money on financing, but or dealers make money on financing. But that's one thing. And there's just a lot of those things. I think the things that make me angry are just the people that just, again, don't fact check anything. No one fact checks anything. Just fact check. We have Google at our disposal, or whatever your preferred search engine is. You can figure all this stuff out with 5 seconds of typing. 5 seconds of typing, and you have all this information at your disposal, and instead people get taken to the cleaners with just getting ripped off, with being confused about common misconceptions about EVs, about hybrids, about plug-in hybrids, about whatever the case is, seeing whatever crap's regurgitated to them on TikTok or whatever, and not ever checking anything to see if it's actually true. It's amazing how human beings are so trusting of complete strangers. It's really insane to me. But anyway, so I think it's not even just non-car, but just people in general not fact checking anything. So that's definitely been a trigger that's especially very relevant in an election year. But let me see. Cara says that Mr. Rogers show was episode 1478. It was so cool to see as a kid. Okay, well, thank you for the specifics. Thankfully I'm able to scroll back on the chat here, so I'll look that up after I'm done here. But yeah, I'm gonna have to find that one for my daughter. Thanks for that. Fun little side tangent about Mr. Rogers, because I can't resist. My father-in-law actually went to school with one of his kids And my father-in-law is one of the few people that have ever seen Mr. Rogers angry. His kid was in trouble for something, and he was never like bad or anything, but like as far as like Mr. Rogers, like he was still, Mr. Rogers, but he was like angry, like, with his kid. In a very obviously Mr. Rogers kind of anger, but it was just, him not being smiling and happy, seeing him, being upset is just kind of interesting. And even like there's, if you ever Google or, on YouTube, I think there's compilations like Mr. Rogers outtakes and like hearing him like swear every once in a while and stuff like that. It's really kind of a fun little rabbit hole to go down if you're ever looking to kill some time. But, yeah, Mr. Rogers is a awesome person. And Danny says, hey Matt, I'm here and happy, but probably not going to be here for a while due to school tomorrow. But someone bought a 2008 Chevy HHR panel van with over 500,000 miles, which is a milestone for it. Absolutely, that's a milestone for any car, but especially one of those. That's impressive. HHRs I thought they were so cool. I miss the GM of the HHR days where they were like, oh man, this PT Cruiser thing's taking off. Let's copy and paste that and make a competitor relatively quickly. I mean, it took them, what did it take them, 5 years to come out with that after the PT Cruiser? I mean, they were certainly a little slow to react, but like they responded versus, Chevy sitting on the sidelines while TRX and Raptor R have been going on for years and years, and there's no answer from Chevy. There's Maverick and there's no answer from Chevy. Like, if this were GM of, pre-recession GM, I guess you could say, they would have had a Maverick competitor out by now. They would have had a supercharged Silverado and all these easy things just to compete, and just GM's just not doing it anymore. I don't know why, but that's unfortunate. So I miss the the executives back then that chased the trends, and they sold a ton of HHR, so it worked out for them, I think, too, to chase that fad. And Chad, thank you so much for another super chat. Sorry, I missed it a little bit earlier here, but he says, Elon talking with China, tariffs, etc. What's the political drive over EVs? I'm not sure I understand the question. So about Elon with China and tariffs. As far as, I'm not sure. I mean, the whole EV thing has unfortunately been very politicized, even though I don't think it really should have been in a lot of ways. It's just, innovative from a, tech standpoint and all that. I'm not going to get into a whole tangent. But, I think it's just one of those things where, it's just anything new is going to be, controversial and not understood and appreciated by people, by the masses for a while. And so I think that's kind of one of the things. I think with the China stuff, with those EVs being so low cost and being so, problematic with the way they got to be so cheap and all that, with the heavy incentivizing the Chinese government did and stuff. And, I think that, to me, the tariffs are something that I think, to me, were understandable. And we saw Europe also follow this and others. I think most of the world is fairly unified on, being like, look, we got to preserve our own car markets because they're a giant portion of our economies and we need to protect our own economies. It's just, I think, one of those things that you can only, allow competition if it's going to be fair competition. And I think it just seems like it's a little bit unfair in some ways. I think the Chinese cars are great in a lot of ways, but it's again, the way they got there is just something it's going to be basically impossible to match, for a country that, again, wants to pay their workers well, that wants to just do things, I guess, in a way that isn't the way that China does it, I guess. And again, I'm not an expert on that component of it all, so I'm not going to weigh in a whole lot, but I think, there's just some of that, you look at just the product and that's fine, but there's other things that play there that you need to consider, whenever you're making these kinds of decisions about whether or not these things should be sold here. But yeah, anyway, thank you for the super chat, Chad. And if you have any follow-ups here before I sign off in a few minutes, definitely let me know. I'm more than happy to answer that question better if there's more context you'd like to provide. But let me see, try and get caught up on the member questions here before we sign off. cars has yeah, beat Ford enthusiasts to the punch there on the Mr. Rogers episode. And let me see. Chad says, "How the heck does a hybrid Tacoma only get 19 mpg?" Yeah, it was a shock to me as well with that video I posted. It's crazy that it can't get better fuel economy. But it's also the big tires, the bunch and bunches of power that thing has, the terrible aerodynamics, all those things certainly don't help. And that also shows how, at the end of the day, like, you can have a powertrain be as efficient as you want, but if you have physics working against you with the wheels and the tires and the shape and all that, like, it's just, you're only going to get so good, and so it's tough. And this is why, it's a very much a law of diminishing returns with some of these trucks, where it's like, even like the Ram, same deal. You drop the V8, you put in a turbo inline six, and you get maybe 1 mpg better. And yes, emissions are slightly down, even if fuel economy itself isn't greatly improved. But for the consumer, there's not really much incentive there, and so it's like, what's the point if it's not going to really pay off a whole lot? But Good Six says Dodge feasted with the Hellcat, and no Mopar fans, and now Mopar fans are disowning them. Yeah, it is what it is. They built their brand on that, and to then do a 180, like, it's, yeah, and they saw this coming. They knew this is going to be a tough challenge, and it is what it is. I mean, I feel bad for Dodge, because in many ways my channel is has the same problem. This channel was built on performance, loud, crazy gas stuff, and a lot of it modified. And I'm not doing much modified stuff anymore. I'm not doing as many crazy loud gas vehicles, just because there's less of them out there to cover in the new market. I'm trying to also do the same pivot into EVs and into the whatever new is put out by car companies, because that's out of my control. If I want to do reviews on new cars, I have to work with what I have to work with. So I'm in the same boat, of people telling me I don't want to see videos on this car. And the views tell me people want to see videos on half of these cars. But this is what's being given to me. This is the confines that I'm working within, and I have to make the best of it and hope that eventually people come around to the idea, just like Dodge. so it's unfortunately it's the same thing, and it's also, again, entirely my fault. I built my channel on all this stuff, and now I'm paying the price for not continuing to just review a new Hellcat every week and just keep rehashing the same old stuff. But that's what a lot of people want to see, and unfortunately, it's not what I'm able to do here. So it's it's why I have extra sympathy for Dodge, because I feel like I very much relate to them right now. And Ford Enthusiast says we have the Dark Horse as well, as far as all the fun Ford stuff. Yeah. And let me see. Ford Enthusiast also says I do toy with getting a Mach E. Then I think about a 5.0 V8 GT or even an Explorer ST for around the same money. Yeah. I mean, I guess if you can truly get them for the same money, but again, look at used Mach E's under 30 grand with low miles. Again, the risk is less there. Obviously, leasing, even lease, I think they lease down to like $400 a month. So I don't know if they're the same money. If you can get them for the same money, great. But if you gotta, with the EVs, you can't look at the window stickers, because that's completely irrelevant in these days of these crazy lease deals and giant discounts on lightly used stuff. With that in play, I think if it's the same price, then I agree that's a dilemma. But if you're looking at used stuff, even lightly used, I think you're going to save a lot on the Mach E. Danny says, I saw a cool and rare car for being in New Jersey. It was a 98 Subaru Outback Sport Wagon. It was clean, which is a rare thing for a Rust Belt car. That is cool. Yeah, my first car was a 97 Outback Sport. So those are near and dear to my heart. And it's always puts a smile on my face when I see one of those out on the road. It's not many of them, though, for sure. Ford Enthusiast also says, Matt, do you still have the Bullet? What year is it? I think they came out in 2009 and one other year. Yeah, they were 01, and then they did them for 2008, 2009, and then 2019 and 2020. Mine was 2019. I sold it back in April as a video. The video is titled "The Hardest Video I've Ever Had to Make." and that is the goodbye video to the Bullet, unfortunately. So it is off in Utah, enjoying its life with a very good caretaker now, who's having a lot of fun with it, thankfully. But I do miss it, and it was sad I had to see it go this year. And you see, Danny also says, I'm also the one I talked about. My family's 2019 Bolt with the replaced battery under the recall. It's a little over 67,500 miles. The car has been estimating 300 miles on one full charge. Nice, because I think those are rated at what, like something in the mid 200s, right? So that's sounds like you guys are very efficient drivers. It's great. Let me see. Cara says, Matt, as much as I love your weekly news updates to help the channel, would it work to do those live Junkyard walks every other Friday in place of the news, perhaps fully shifting to Junkyard Fridays? That's definitely a potential to do something like that. And it's a good idea to maybe swap one for the other, since again I'm so maxed out on time. It would be easier to sacrifice one thing to make time for those. Absolutely. I mean, certainly that could be a thing if Junkyard walks turn out to actually be a successful thing, from a financial standpoint. If it actually generates a decent amount of views or supers or whatever to justify the lives, if that does turn out to be the case, then like absolutely that would be a great substitute. The thing, you look at every other car channel that does car reviews though, and they're singular with their focus of reviews. And I think that's easier for the algorithm. The algorithm knows that this is what people are on this channel for, is to see reviews and not news, not Junkyard stuff. I still want to do the Junkyard stuff because I personally just love it, and it's a thing I selfishly want to do as well, in addition to the fact that I know many of you are also excited for it. And again, if we do it as a live like we talked about previously, then there's no time commitment outside of just doing the walk and going there and back, but very little time commitment, and something I would also really enjoy. So I'm going to give it a try at some point. I promise I will. I'm just so slammed this fall I have a long backlog, and I can't make it any longer by pushing back reviews or anything. But in 2025, absolutely, especially if I decide the weekly updates are kind of beyond saving, then that would be a great way to kind of introduce them, is something that I know many of you also are so excited about with the Junkyard stuff, and kind of swap that in there to lessen the blow a little bit. But it's a great idea, Cars. Thanks for offering that up. And Danny says, night, everyone. Was only here about 20 minutes, but it was a good 20 minutes. Hope everyone will still have a good week. Band is still crazy as always. Hope you and your family are doing well, Matt. Night, guys. Thanks for stopping by, Danny. And we are already actually 5 minutes over. I realized over time here as well. So we will wrap it up here. And I'll be signing off as well, but hope you have a great week, Danny, and thanks for stopping by. Good Sticks has been playing Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown. Right now, there are no houses, and the dealers have a generic design, but like real life, the money you earn in races can't buy a better car. Nice. Well, it's interesting that they kind of rolled it out half-baked, and there's none of the stuff there that you would think people are buying the Test Drive Unlimited for, because that was the cool, unique stuff, was the dealers and the houses and stuff. So hopefully they improve that soon. But thanks for the little early review on that. Let me know if it gets any better. I will hopefully try and play that here at some point. I still do also want to live stream me digging up all my old video games and kind of just doing some nostalgic, like PlayStation 1, PS2 kind of video gaming, some racing games and stuff. I think that's something I see some love there for that as well. So I want to do that as well. I was actually just talking to my brother-in-law who's more into video games and has, I don't even have those old systems. He's got the old systems. He knows more about streaming as far as gaming streaming, because I have no clue how to do any of that stuff. So he might kind of help me with that. That is another idea I'm considering, is because again, it seems like YouTube is going more and more towards live stuff, and I'm fully fine embracing that, because if I can, quit editing stuff or minimize editing, and my life would be much better anyway. I still want to do reviews, but if I can do more live stuff, that would be way easier on me anyway, especially if it's just me having fun playing games or walking a junkyard. But so I want to try and work out doing some video gaming here, some nostalgic stuff in the future as well. But let me see. Joe says, "What's up, man? Hope you're having a good night. Besides cars, what other motor vehicles do you enjoy?" I don't have time to enjoy anything else, but I've always said I'd love to have a jet ski. If I really had a lot of time and money, I'd love a boat as well someday. But it would be one of those things where I'd be one of those boat owners that like would have to have someone else like handle everything. But I'd love to have a boat someday and a jet ski. Because I do love being on the water and being by the water and all that. So that would be a fun thing if I'm ever in the fortunate position to have that kind of a situation. But yeah, I've ridden on ATVs a couple of times. ATVs are fun, but they're also a little more dangerous than I personally like. RC cars, got into those as a kid a little bit, but never done that, as an adult. But it seems like a fun hobby for sure as well. But yeah, jet skis are a blast. I'd love to be on jet skis more. And all right, let me see. So for enthusiasts, I'd take the 5N over the Porsche. The Taycan looks like one sweet car, but so expensive. Yeah, but they were also getting a lot cheaper on the used market. Like the one I reviewed, it was like originally like 190 grand or something, and the owner that I was reviewing it from, he paid like under 100 for it. I mean, it's still an expensive car, but half price in a couple of years is a pretty good deal. But Good Stick says most cars are very expensive, so paying cash for a new car now is crazy. You would need to save for a year or more. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's impressive people that do have the cash for cash buying, but yeah, I'm not sure why people think that is a perk for a dealer. And Ford enthusiast also says, Matt, I tend to agree with you on the 5N. I've been so impressed with Hyundai the past couple of years. They're killing it. I've been a Ford guy for over 40 years, but I'm becoming more Team Hyundai lately. Yeah, they do some great stuff. I mean, and Ford still does some great stuff as well. I mean, it's just yeah, a lot of companies are really doing some really impressive stuff. I think, it's as a car reviewer, it's a lot of times people are like, oh, you're not negative enough and all this. And it's like, there's just a lot of really good cars, and it's not as easy to be negative about stuff as it was, even 10 years ago when there was, more, suboptimal cars out there. These days, most stuff is really good, especially when you're as a non-car enthusiast. Like as far as transportation goes, like everything is pretty good these days. I mean, there's a few exceptions maybe, but overall, I think everything is, pretty good. And Brian says, Mr. Rogers sent me a letter. I have a signed picture of Mr. Rogers. That's awesome. So cool. Yeah. If you're ever in Pittsburgh, there is actually a statue to him too, right by the Steelers stadium there. And they actually carved it out of what used to be a support for one of the old bridges that they knocked down back in, like, I think 1970. It's a really cool way they did it, but there's a really cool Mr. Rogers statue there. So one of the cool perks of Pittsburgh, you can see some of the old stuff. Our children's museum has the original set pieces from his sets and all that. It's very cool. Very cool to see. And Dave says, wow, positive opinion of the HHR is rare. I bought mine new and still enjoy it. I added a supercharger from the Cobalt SS. That's awesome. Man, that sounds like a fun combo, Dave. Wow, you must be one of the only people that's got a supercharger on an HHR. That sounds great, though. That is, man, yeah, that would be a blast. Kudos to you for doing that. Yeah, no, I mean, I guess the HHR probably had the same stigma as PT Cruiser of, like, some people thought it was like the worst thing ever. I always thought PT Cruiser was cool too, though. I mean, they sold like crazy. So, I mean, they had haters, I guess, but not very many because the sales numbers suggested otherwise. And same with HHR. I mean, I remember those used to be everywhere for a long time, at least around me. But glad you're enjoying yours. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Dave. Good Stick says, what do you think about the non-performance Teslas? There's not much enthusiast features in the long range and the standard range. I have a long range, and I find it annoying there are not more drive modes. And, I think, it makes sense to me that, if you're, again, like Model Y, best-selling vehicle in the world last year, right? So, for a vehicle like that, you have to have mainstream appeal, and drive modes are confusing to a lot of people. Again, non-car people, they're like, what is this? How do I get in it? How do I get out of it? Is it going to mess things up? There's all these, confusing things about drive modes. So I can see why, there would be kind of a limit to that kind of stuff on those. But I mean, I think they're still already fast in a straight line. And I think, with Tesla having the performance variants of everything, they know that people that, want to have a more well-rounded vehicle that's more than just a straight line, thing can have the performance versions, and that gives you that nice little boost. So I think that, they're, to me, the non-performance Teslas are, done well for their intended audience, I think. And again, I think the sales numbers suggest that as well. Good Stick says they should have put in some of the performance modes into the non-performance models. Yeah, I mean, I guess that doesn't really cost them anything, but that would be, I think something that's still, could, again, potentially be confusing for some people. I see Rev Match TV is in here. Thanks for stopping by, Eric. He says, hello, Matt. Stumbled in here from my keyboard. Well, thanks for stopping by, and I hope you're doing well. I was actually just plugging your channel a week or two ago. We were discussing reliability of GR86 and the oil starvation stuff and all that. And I said how, you kind of gave me some of your thoughts on that back whenever that was, everyone was in hysterics over that, earlier this year or last year or whatever. And the fantastic wealth of information you have on the GR86 is there. And again, you're racing of them, and I mean, doing way more than most enthusiasts. So yeah, definitely highly recommend Rev Match TV. Very knowledgeable guy, super nice guy as well. And so definitely check out his channel there if you want some great info on GR86s and what it's like to track those and all that. Let me see. Linda says, I wasn't a car person before my Mustang Be Kind. Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of what I've been realizing is that there's been a lot of people that, just are not in the car world, and you can't expect them to know a lot of the stuff that us enthusiasts, think are, common knowledge things for sure. All right, so yeah, everyone else saying good night here, and so yeah, thanks for stopping by, everyone. Yeah, Red Match says I've got a series coming on the GR86. Thanks for the plug. Absolutely, yeah, definitely, yeah. Anyone who's interested about those, definitely check out his channel. Yeah, all right, so. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for another great live stream. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a great week here. Stay tuned for tomorrow's review. It'll be the review of the most expensive car I've ever reviewed. So stay tuned for that if that sounds appealing to you. And yeah, thank you all so much for your support here, and have a great week. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.